Hello everyone and welcome to Racer TV. Today we're in Blountville, Tennessee for round number 8 of the ITP Moose Racing ATV National Motocross Series presented by Parts Unlimited. I'm Rodney Tomlin along with John Tatali, 2005 defending ATV National Motocross Champion. And John, I tell you, it's basically a brand new season. We're halfway through and the points battle is really tight.
Yeah, you know, everybody stepped it up this year and everything is really tight. This time last year I think that I had it pretty much sewed up, but you know, this year I'm sitting 4 points behind Joe Bird, and you know, for me, like, this is going to be kind of like a whole new season for me. I got to get myself up front and finish in front of Joe and get myself back into the points lead. And you know, the competition this year has just been fierce. So you know, I'm hoping to do my best and come out here and come out on top this weekend.
Speaking of competition, John, Digger Doug Gus has been there all season, and finally coming on strong now, Jeremiah Jones has got the bad luck behind him, it looks like.
Yeah, Jeremiah is always tough, you know, and bad luck always seems to follow him where he goes. And you know, the last few races he's definitely stepped it up and finished strong, and you know, he's going to be hard to beat this weekend as well the rest of the year.
A little different look to this racetrack this year as well.
Yeah, you know, they're actually running it backwards this year, and they've changed up a lot of stuff. You know, they took out a few turns and added a couple extra turns, and took out some of the old obstacles that we used to have here, and then put in some new ones. So, you know, everybody's starting over, starting fresh. It's like a brand new track this year.
And of course, the competition is going to be fierce, and we're going to take a look at this brand new track that John's talking about right now.
And we do that courtesy of Josh Upperman from the Motorsport.com Honda team, as he is out of Louisville, Ohio, and he runs the Pro-Am Unlimited and the Pro-Am Production classes. As you can see, the way things are looking here off the start, these riders will take that left-hand turn. That's the same thing as normal, but right there, that turn just a moment ago is where the change is actually taking place whenever these riders are riding this course backwards. You can see nice little tabletop section, little rhythm section, some singles there, nothing too out of kilter for these riders as they make their way around this next turn, a small rhythm section. And then up toward the finish line region. This is where the portion of the race course that is actually deemed as Scotty's Hill here at Muddy Creek Raceway. And as these riders make their way around, it's basically a big long straight shot across the side of this hill along the ridge line, so to speak. But a couple little dips and turns here and there, like this one here kind of goes down to the bottom once again, then back up top and a hard right-hand turn just before the finish line. As you can see, a nice wide race course here, and a fairly rough race course for these riders as well. So we sit back and take a ride with Josh Upperman on his Bubba Motorsports, Motorsport.com Honda, to take a full look at this race course here at Blountville, Tennessee. Now, as Josh Upperman approaches this section of the race course, this is where the changes were made from the start section. On the start section right here, the riders actually come down the hill off the start, but through this section on their way back around after one lap is complete, you can see they're heading up, and you can see that the changes that were made were could be confusing, but once the riders get that all adapted, everything seems to work out A-OK. We got some great starts this weekend and some great racing action that these riders are going to be offering us up as a part of this DVD, this ATV MX on DVD. It's a 2006 Tennessee Spring National, the ATV Spring National here at Muddy Creek Raceway. It's round number 8 of America's premier motocross racing ATV series, the 2006 ITP Moose Racing ATVA National Motocross Championship, presented by Parts Unlimited. Special thanks also to our friends at Suzuki and ATV Sport Magazine as well. Here's the last turn one more time. You get to see a lot of last-ditch efforts by a lot of riders throughout the course of this weekend of racing before this one's all said and done. And there we have one full lap here at Muddy Creek Raceway as we head down to Pro-Am Unlimited. Got a total of 14 riders trying their hand here at Muddy Creek Raceway this weekend. And they do include, of course, that number 20 of Josh Upperman from Louisville, Ohio on the motorsport.com machine. But you can see he did not get the hole shot, or at least the early hole shot. But as they work their way out of turn number 1 down towards turn number 2, Josh Upperman actually takes the early lead there aboard the number 20 machine. He had Mitch Reynolds right on his rear wheel there, it looked like, aboard the number 137, as well as several other riders throughout the course of this race, including the number 10 of Greg G out of Ontario, Canada. And as race day wore on here in Moto 1 and Moto 2, Josh Upperman was able to take a moto sweep there with a 1-1. Other riders included the 79 of Clay Holmes from Lexington, Tennessee, the number 10 of Greg G from Simcoe, Ontario, Canada, the 122 Honda rider Dustin Royer from Louisville, Ohio, 36 Yamaha of Michael Brown from Bullville, New York, the 156 Yamaha of Denton Boyer from Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, 49 Yamaha of Sage Baker from Shasta Lake, California, the 31 Honda of Adam Clark from Lorain, Ohio, the 55 Honda of Jacob Hackala from New Ipswich, New Hampshire, the number 215 Suzuki of Thomas Hager from Flattery, Kentucky, the number 310 of Cody Harris from Sioux City, Iowa, the 111 of Nate Morello, a Honda rider out of Peterborough, New Hampshire, the 137 of Mitch Reynolds from Greenbrier, Arkansas, and the 410 of Steve Dibble from Susquehanna, Pennsylvania. Early on, looked like the number 137 of Mitch Reynolds could be a force to be factored into this Pro-Am Moto, but unfortunately for him, he DNFs in Moto number 1. Another rider, Tom Hager, the number 215, having a very strong run in Moto number 1 with a 4th place finish, backs it up in the second Moto with a 14th place finish. Though consistency pays off for guys like Clay Holmes and Greg G throughout the course of this race. Upperman, as we told you, got the Moto sweeps with a 1-1, but behind him the battling was taking place with Holmes and G, and it looks like Holmes comes out on top in second, G in third, Dustin Royer in fourth, and rounding out your top 5 Pro-Am Unlimited will be Michael Brown aboard the number 36. Up next, we take a look at our Pro-Am Production Racing. Now, Pro-Am Unlimited takes place on Sunday at 10:30 and 2. Pro-Am Production on Saturday at 10:30 and 2 as the gate drops on this Saturday morning of racing. We got riders like Clay Holmes aboard the number 79 back out here. Even Corey Ellis, the number 53 machine, the Yamaha pilot, taking, well, a little bit of extra track time here at Muddy Creek to try and enable himself to be in contention for maybe a little better position finish in the Pro class coming up on Sunday. But like we said, Clay Holmes out there, 53 of Corey Ellis from Marietta, California, 49 of Sage Baker from Shasta Lake, California, the number 20 of Josh Upperman from Louisville, Ohio, the 122 of Dustin Royer, also from Louisville, Ohio, number 10 of Greg G out of Simcoe, Ontario, Canada, the 31 of Adam Clark from Lorain, Ohio, 215 of Thomas Hager from Flattery, Kentucky, the 137 of Mitch Reynolds from Greenbrier, Arkansas, 156 of Denton Boyer from Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, 410 of Steve Dibble from Susquehanna, Pennsylvania, 36 of Michael Brown from Bullville, New York, the 55 of Jacob Hackula out of New Ipswich, New Hampshire, number 26, Robert McClure from Russellville, Alabama, the 24 of Patrick Flanagan from Mount Hope, Alabama, 310 of Cody Harris from Sioux City, Iowa, the 42 of Gray Parker from Humboldt, Tennessee, 111 of Nate Morello from Peterborough, New Hampshire, and the 751 of Trent Candell from Millersburg, Ohio. Josh Upperman, the rider that we normally see up front being the man to beat, at the end of Moto number 1 actually drops off and only can hold on to a second place position finish in that first Moto, but come Moto number 2, more troubles abound for him as he finds himself dropping all the way back to an 8th place position finish before the checkers come out, and the day of redemption would be Sunday, where Josh came out and took the 1-1 Moto wins, which we just saw a few moments ago in our Pro-Am Unlimited class racing. But the big surprise here today was Clay Holmes and the great ride he put together. He took a Moto 1 win, second place in the second Moto. Corey Ellis took a 3rd place finish in Moto number 1 and came back to win the second Moto. It was only good enough for the overall second on the race day. As we look back to 3rd, Sage Baker having his best race of the season so far with a 4th place finish in Moto number 1 and a 3rd place finish in Moto number 2 to round out the top 3. Upperman, he scores a 2.8 for the overall 4th place, and rounding out the top 5, the 122 of Dustin Royer with an 8.5.
The mobile medical unit came to be in 2004 through the help of Ray Christie and, of course, Doc Reagan and Weekend Warrior, Gary Denton from Weekend Warrior. It was started in memory of my son, Matt Bartosik, and Cody Hurst. And we just wanted to provide something for the riders and the spectators and family members where they could receive, walking wounded care. At this race here at Muddy Creek, we are going to have an auction, and all the pros have been wonderful about donating items. We've got, I think, something from just about all the pros that are here this weekend, and we're going to auction it off at 1 p.m. Some of the other fundraisers we do is we do 50-50 raffles. We've had just jersey raffles. I'd just like to say thanks to everyone for their support. It's been great. We couldn't do it without everybody helping us.
Up next, the 265A here at our Tennessee ATV Spring National Muddy Creek, round number 8 of the ITP Moose Racing ATVA National Motocross Championship Series. 13 riders heading into turn number 1, jockeying for position in this 265A class. And as we head to that first turn, trouble abounds for that number 32 and the number 40. The number 40 is Mark Via from Export, Pennsylvania. Number 32 looked familiar. It looks like Matt White's machine. Although that's not Matt White riding it. That's Jason Detch out of St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. Actually, I think he bought that machine off of Matt White as Matt was able to get himself a new one here about mid-season. But it's the action picks back up here in the 265A class. The 328 Honda rider, Nathan Comer, is going to be the one to beat. We see that rider right there, the number 44 machine. That's John Scarrow. He's out of Wayne, Michigan. Took an 8th place finish in Moto number 1. But other riders out there, including the 328 of Nathan Comer from Philadelphia, Mississippi, the 131 of Chad Sumner from Sylvan, North Carolina, 28 of Joseph Bruton from Chardon, Ohio, 888 of Brian Sowers from Zanesville, Ohio, 75 of Casey Martin from Frenchburg, Kentucky, 357 of Hunter Johnson from Metter, Georgia, 61 of Donnie Miller from Wendell, North Carolina, the number 10 of Greg G from Ontario, Canada, the number 208 of Chris Boothie from Dwight, Ontario, Canada, the 25 of Logan Brewster, also from Anita, Tennessee, and then, as we said, Jason Detch out of St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. And the way things break down in this one, it's a Moto 1 win for Nathan Comer, the number 328, as he does take that win, but he has company back there in that second moto, especially Greg G, the Yamaha pilot out of Ontario, Canada, the number 10, one of John Natale's proteges, took a second moto win after DNFing in Moto number 1, so things are a little bit wild there. Sumner gets second, Bruning gets third, Sowers fourth, and Casey Martin rounds out the top 5 in a Moose Racing 265A results. Up next, our 265B class, as we've got 19 riders vying for the number 1 spot here in Muddy Creek today, and they do include riders like the number 14 of William Cottage out of Industry, Pennsylvania, the 16 of Kyle Bard, he's out of Oil City, Pennsylvania. We've got riders number 832 of Doug Lancer out of Cambridge, Ohio. Keep an eye out for him. The 45 of Lance Lowe from Hartsville, South Carolina. That rider right there, you see the 151 slash of Jonathan Bowell from Vero Beach, Florida, the 29 of Theodore Amons from Rineyville, Kentucky, the 26 of Derek Schwartzbeger from Knox, Pennsylvania, the 54 of Robert Parnell, he's out of Mount Gilead, North Carolina, the 11 of Chad Raymond from Geneva, Ohio, the 655 of CJ Waters from Mount Olive, Alabama, the 161 of Walter Ogle from Maryville, Tennessee, Jason Klutwick running the number 610 out of Westville, Indiana. 28 Ryan Akers from Greenville, Tennessee. 262 Dustin Schwartzbeger from Knox, Pennsylvania. The 888 of Brian Kimmick out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. The number 4 of Randy Finch from Murray, Kentucky. 151 of Andrew Travis from Warren, Pennsylvania. The 88 of Paul Nemec from Cabaret, New Jersey. And the number 7 of Josh Bateman from Spring, Texas. In Moto number 1, we saw Kyle Bard taking the win in that particular division aboard the number 16 machine, but had a little bit of troubles in Moto number 2. William Cottage, though, the number 14 rider, took a 2-2 situation to actually take the win in the overall for the 265B class. Lance Lowe, the number 45 Yamaha rider from Hartsville, South Carolina, took a 9th place finish in Moto number 1, but rebounds back for a 1st place finish in Moto number 2. Still only good enough for an overall top 4 for him. But we keep our eyes out there on the race course. As we said, consistency is what seems to pay off for these riders. And Cottage, the number 14, is the one that has that happen for him as he goes 2-2 for the overall. Kyle Bard in 2nd aboard the number 16. Doug Lancer in 3rd. The 45 of Lance Lowe, who took the 2nd moto win, finished up 4th overall. And the 151 slash Suzuki of Jonathan Boutwell rounds out your top 5 with a 7-3. Heading on to the 265C class, novice class riders, 265 cc's, as big as these machines can get. And we got another great battle about ready to shape up here in Muddy Creek, Tennessee. We got a total of 17 riders that are trying their hand at this race course this weekend. It looks like the early lead is going to go to that number 21 machine. See if we can figure out who that is. That's Troy Heath from Dade City, Florida. But quickly, the 22 of Matt Shapaka from Orville, Ohio, moves into the number 1 spot, and that's pretty much where he stays for Moto number 1 and for Moto number 2 as he takes a 1-1 in the overall win. Other riders include the 43 of Josh Older from Scottsdale, Pennsylvania, the number 30 of Lucas Lamons from Bull Gap, Tennessee, number 10 of Corey Rogers from Killen, Alabama, the number 20 of Tyler Lowe from Hartsville, South Carolina, 52 of Joel Johnson from Clinton, Mississippi, the 64 of Sean Williams from Cosby, Tennessee, 21 Troy Heath from Dade City, Florida, 82 of Lance Hancock from Trail Creek, Indiana, 191 of James Foote from Blaine, Tennessee, the number 13 of Brandon Welp from Ferdinand, Indiana, 131 of Ronald Michael from Richland, North Carolina, Chad Bumgarner aboard the number 141 from Richland, North Carolina, number 10 / Dallas Phillips from Lexington, South Carolina, the 118 of Jeremy Holloway from Land O'Lakes, Florida, the 412 of Michael Stomer from Knoxville, Tennessee, and the number 2 of Curtis Byers out of Stanley, North Carolina, rounds out your field of 17 riders. As we said, the 22 machine of Shapaka getting up front and pretty much walking away with this one. And there we see some of the other riders settling into pace here as the moto wears on. There's the 64 of Sean Williams. Saw the number 10 there of Corey Rogers just ahead of him here in this 265C class. And there comes even more. 118 machine you see making his way around the race course there. Jeremy Holloway not having the best of motos, finished 11th in moto number 1 and took a DNF in moto number 2. Tough breaks for him, but that's the Moose Racing 265C results here at Muddy Creek Raceway. Good look at a lot of smiling faces as we get set to go with the Open A class now here at Muddy Creek. Race class number 7, and here's the way they break down as they head into turn number 1. As you can see, position jockeying taking place, but it is the number 32 of Dustin Norman from Lawndale, North Carolina, grabbing the early lead in this one. This is the class that we keep an eye out for the number 07 of Dane Heilman, expecting him to actually take the win in this one. See how things sort out for him. Right now it looks like Dustin Norman is walking away with this one. Other riders do include, like I said, Dane Heilman aboard the 07 from Richland, Indiana. The 181 of Jay DeRosa. He's out of Long Valley, New Jersey. The 419 of Chase Cunningham from Moorhead, Kentucky. A rider that when he is on and tough to beat. The number 50 of Randy Hurst from Brooksville, Kentucky. Also the 112 of Tasmanian Tommy Tantillo from Manorville, New York. The number 71 of Brian Giles from Maplesville, Alabama. The 131 of Robert Cagle from South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. And the 26 of Ronnie Province. He's out of Cane Hill, Arkansas. Consistency pays off for Norman as he does go 1-1. Dane Heilman finishing 2-3 for the overall second. Jay DeRosa, who finished 3rd in moto number 1, comes back for a 4th place finish in moto number 2 to round out the overall top 3. Now, Chase Cunningham, on the other hand, had a tough first moto with a 7th place finish in moto number 1 aboard the number 419 machine. Rebounds back in moto number 2 to come and put some stiff competition on your winner, Justin Norman, especially early in the race. But as the race day wore on, Cunningham settled pretty much into that 2nd place position for the second moto, and that was good enough for an overall 4th place position on the race day for Cunningham in that Open A class. Other names to point out in this one, Tommy Tantillo, the 40-plus-year-old class rider who is not only dominating that 40-plus division, he's also coming out of here and putting his hat in the ring in the Open A class and has become pretty much a contender in this one each and every time that the gate drops. He finished 4th and 7th. Had problems in that second moto that took him back into what looks like a 6th place overall as we look at our Moose Racing results. With Norman Heilman in 2nd, DeRosa in 3rd, Cunningham 4th, and Hurst rounding out the top 5. Open B class is where we head to next. And we got a total of 20 riders starting off the line in this one. A pretty full house as far as the gate is concerned as we head up through turn number 1. First moto racing action, we can see that the position jockeying is on, and that looked like the number 44 of James Perry from Adolphus, Kentucky. Believe it or not, taking the early lead there. There's the number 9 machine. Tough break for him. That's John Foreman from DePaul, Indiana. Getting off to a little sluggish start there after getting tied up in those first couple of turns. Other riders out there include the 81 of Jeremy Giles, the 26. By the way, Giles from Brandon, Mississippi. 26, Derek Swartfeger from Knox, Pennsylvania. The 119 of Brad Caraway from Lanesville, Indiana. Dustin Swartfeger, number 262 out of Knox, PA. The 44 of James Perry from Adolphus, Kentucky. The 151 of Josh Holyfield from Grover, North Carolina. 325 Bryce Wilson from Benton, Illinois. The number 21 of Christopher Tenney from Westminster, Maryland. The 832 of Doug Lancer from Cambridge, Ohio. The 87 of Chris Miller from Martinez, Georgia. The number 8 of Mark Ray from Greenback, Tennessee. The 58 of Nick Carter from Owenton, Kentucky. The number 10 of Jacob Nannery from Greenville, Tennessee. 161 of Walter Ogle from Maryville, Tennessee. The 180 of Lauren Klein from Ferdinand, Indiana. Number 9 of John Foreman from DePaul, Indiana. The 131 of Jonathan DeRosa from Chester, New Jersey. The number 12 of Zach Salter from Elmore, Alabama. 65 of Johnny Ledbeater out of Walland, Tennessee. And the 27 of Zachary Thomas out of Whipple, Ohio. Moto number 1 saw Josh Holyfield, the number 151, to be the man to beat out there out of Grover, North Carolina. Though moto number 2 did not prove to be nearly as much as a competitor there, as he finished up 14th in moto number 1 after taking a moto 1 win. Also another rider that struggled in the second moto, the 87 of Chris Miller from Martinez, Georgia, took a 2nd in moto number 1 and actually DNF in moto number 2 to bring himself to an 11th place overall finish on the race weekend. But whenever the smoke finally settled up there, Jeremy Giles took the overall win with a 3rd place finish in the first moto and a 1st place finish in the second moto. Get this, 2nd place position with the Derek Swartfeger, the number 26 from Knox, Pennsylvania. He finished 8th in moto number 1 to come back and finish 2nd in the second moto. So you know a lot of strange things happening out there in the Open B Moto 1 and Moto 2. As it's Giles, Swartfeger, Caraway, Swartfeger, and Perry rounding out your top 5. Up next is our Open C division. We head right on through the program here. We got a total of what looks like about 15 of these Open C riders heading into that first turn now as they jockey for position in turn number 1. Look at this, bar banging, actually wheel banging going on there. The 119 of Keel Carter and the 718 of Zach Martin jockey for that number 1 spot out of the turn. Not sure who's going to get actual credit for that one when it's all said and done, but riders out there on the race course do include the 718 of Martin from Middletown, Ohio, and that is who finally secures the number 1 spot. 171 of Kyle Crop from Camp Point, Illinois. The 119 of Keel Carter from Hanson, Kentucky. The number 112 of Kyle Eaton from Webster, Florida. The 75 of Brian Woodruff from Susquehanna, Pennsylvania. 10/ of Dallas Phillips from Lexington, South Carolina. The 409 is Andrew Gibson from Cambridge, Ohio. 32 Eric Weber out of Knoxville, Tennessee. The 19 of Anthony Burge from Alto, Georgia. The 132 of Tim Frady from Sylva, North Carolina. 578 Justin Hicks from Bristol, Virginia. The 100 of Rocky Pickle from Withyville, Virginia. 412 Michael Stoner. He's out of Knoxville, Tennessee. And the 04 of Vicky Eaton out of Webster, Florida. And that is your 14 riders here in the Open C division. As they got their work cut out for them, there goes the number 12 machine that we see checking in with us. I think that is actually the 112 of Kyle Eaton from Webster, Florida. Took a 5 and a 4 in the first and second motos. Was good enough for an overall 4th place finish for him. Consistency actually pays off for our top 3 riders there. Zach Martin, Kyle Crop, and Keel Carter finished 1, 2, and 3 in both Moto 1 and Moto number 2. Brian Woodruff, number 75 Honda we see there, actually took a 6 and a 5 for the overall 5th place position on the day. Kyle Eaton took the overall 4th aboard the number 112. He did that by riding with a 5-4 on the race weekend. Moving on to our 4-stroke A class here at the ATV Spring National, Tennessee Spring National here at Muddy Creek Raceway. In round 8 of the ITP Moose Racing ATV National Motocross Championship Series presented by Parts Unlimited. The gate is down for our 4-stroke A riders now. And through the first turn, they've got to get it all sorted out. While they do that, we'll sort all the riders out there in this particular division for you. 19 of them in all. As we see riders like number 66 out there, Russell Shoemaker from Bristol, Wisconsin. The 491 of Brian King from Grindstone, Pennsylvania. Number 4, Cody Brown from Van Alstyne, Texas. 74 of Aaron Meyer from Harrison, Ohio. 29 of James Silpies from Hatfield, Pennsylvania. 52 of Luke Beachy from Akron, Ohio, formerly of Australia. The 7 slash of Devin Himes from Zephyr Hills, Florida. The number 40 of Mark Vaya from Export, Pennsylvania. The 25 of Logan Brewster from Oneida, Tennessee. 32 of Jason Detch out of St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. 557 of Adam Warren from Burlington, Wisconsin. Number 80 of Jeffrey Thompson from Hanover, Pennsylvania. 34 of Abraham Straney from Vine Grove, Kentucky. And 162 of Philip Bapps from Beaver, Ohio. 19 of Christopher Holden from Addison, New York. 26 of Austin Flash from Montrose, Illinois. The number 5 of Henley Britnell, actually, out of Mount Hope, Alabama. 404 of Taylor Condacure out of North Apollo, Pennsylvania. And the 64 of Kyle Damon out of Duncansville, Pennsylvania. Damon having some problems this weekend with a DNF and a DNS in Moto 1 and Moto 2 for an overall DNF in 19th place position there in the 4-stroke A class. Up front, though, Russell Shoemaker, the number 66. He took a second place finish in Moto number 1, but rebounded back in the second Moto to take the win in the Moto 2, and that would be enough to catapult him into the overall win for the weekend. Brian King, another strong ride for this rider, Honda pilot out of Grindstone, Pennsylvania, actually took a Moto 1 win, came up just a hair short in that second Moto to get the overall second. Those guys actually tying for the overall on the weekend, but best finish goes to Russell Shoemaker there in that second Moto, Brian King in second, then third place Cody Brown, Aaron Meyer in fourth, and James Silpies rounded out your top 5 in our Moose Racing results for our 4-stroke A class. Moving on to the 4-stroke B class, as we check into this one, we had actually had to have a qualifier, narrow this one down to the top 20 riders on the race weekend. Riders into the first turn, trying to get it all sorted out, include what looks like the early leader there. I think that was David Hutanis, the number 38 Yamaha pilot of Hatfield, Pennsylvania, but division number 2 coming out of the gate there, 919 Ricky Stair from Harmony, Pennsylvania. We'll actually hold on to that one for a Moto 1 and Division 1 win. In division number, actually that was Division 2. Division number 1, though, the 111 of Matthew Brimmer. That's actually Factory 111 out of Palm Bay, Florida. Took a Moto 1 win in his division and won the second place position in Moto number 2. Was still good enough for the overall win. It's Chris Bowen, the number 6 Yamaha pilot from Land O'Lakes, Florida. Actually took a 4th in Moto 1 in his division race, but came back to win the second Moto, and that was good enough for an overall second. Mark Winchester, the 87, also out there out of Kingsville, Ohio. Number 125, Johnny Jackson from Cookeville, Tennessee. 51 of Matthew Butler from Manitoba, Virginia. 228 of Larry Clemens from Hamilton, New Jersey. Jonathan Ben-John aboard the number 2 out of Eureka, Missouri. 919 of Ricky Stair from Harmony, Pennsylvania. 325 of Bryce Wilson from Benton, Illinois. 54 slash of John Macwish out of Pipersville, Pennsylvania. 487 Matthew Simmons from Wheatfield, Indiana. The 54 of Robert Parnell out of Mount Gilead, North Carolina. 610 of Jason Klutwick from Westville, Indiana. The 88 of Paul Nemec from Carteret, New Jersey. The number 888 of Brian Kimneck out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. Number 10 of Landon Fielder from Withyville, Virginia. The number 21 of Christopher Tinney from Westminster, Maryland. The 81 of Melvin Jeffords out of Grantsburg, Illinois. 77 of Brian Vaughn from Harrisburg, Illinois. The number 4 of Randy Finch from Murray, Kentucky. The number 53 of Jacob Gunn from St. Petersburg, Florida. The number 45 of Lance Lowe from Hartsville, South Carolina. And 37 of Andrew Prentosky from DeMott, Indiana. It was Brimmer, Bowen, Winchester, Hutanis, and rounding out your top 5, Johnny Jackson. So look at our Moose Racing results for the 4-stroke B class. Moving on to the 4-stroke C class, novice class riders, as the 4-stroke A would be kind of considered your expert riders. B class is intermediate, and C class is your novice class riders. You see them making their way into turn number 1. And again, they're just as hungry as every class is out there to get a hole shot, because they know as well as anyone, though a hole shot does not guarantee a moto win, a hole shot will definitely set you in a better light to be able to pull something like that off. Riders getting off in these division races. Actually, this is not a division race. This is just a one-man show, I guess a one or two moto show for these guys. A little action there on the bottom of that off camera. Now that's a little bit off camera. You can't really tell by looking at this angle, but those riders have to come down into that horseshoe. It's a little off camera. Not only that, the racetrack is just rough there, and if a rider just gets a little bit sideways, all he takes is just that little bit and maybe clip one of those stutter bumps there, and that's enough to pitch you over the bars. Up front, though, the number 2 of Curtis Byers from Stanley, North Carolina, takes control of the 4-stroke C-Class early on in Moto 1 and pretty much dominates in Moto number 2 as well, as other riders he has to contend with out there include the 339 of Micah Bachner out of Philadelphia, Mississippi, the number 43 of Josh Oler from Scottsdale, Pennsylvania, the 87 of Brian Evans from Palm Bay, Florida, 35 of John Sayer from Fairfield, Ohio, 777 of William Rogers out of Virginia Beach, Virginia, the 517 of Mark Wheeler from Amherst, Virginia, the number 30 of Lucas Lamons out of Bull Gap, Tennessee, number 82 of Lance Hancock from Trail Creek, Indiana, the 88 of Eric Applegate from Crossville, Tennessee, 411 of Tally Williams from Cosby, Tennessee, the 11 of Garrett Helmick from Dover, Tennessee, 171 of Bobby Gifford from Conneaut, Ohio, 497 of Daniel Novak out of Kingston, Tennessee, 21 of John Woodford out of Chillicothe, Ohio, 413 of Corey McIntosh out of Lebanon, Ohio, the 89 of Chris Monty from Boston, North Carolina, 210 of Matthew Cash from Mount Airy, Georgia, 456 Dave Compton from Johnson City, Tennessee, and the 44 of Joseph Wells from Withyville, Virginia. It was Byers with the overall, with Michael Boatner, Oler, Evans, and Sayer rounding out your top 5 on our Moose Racing results for our 4-stroke C-Class. Time now to take a look at our Motorsport Hot Product of the Week with Motorsport.com rider Josh Upperman.
Hi, I'm Josh Upperman with Team Motorsport Honda. This week's Motorsport Hot Product of the Week features the Alloy Armor Light. The Alloy Armor Light is a lightweight, breathable under jersey protector. Armor Light was designed for riders who don't want any restrictions when they ride. Comfortable and cool, and fits like a second skin, and also great for roost when you're out on the track. And right now at motorsport.com you can find the Alloy Armor Light under jersey protector and all alloy gear at unbelievable blowout prices. And that's this week's Motorsport Hot Product of the Week.
Moving along in our racing action here this weekend at the Tennessee ATV Spring National, it's going to be our Production A class. 19 riders heading into that first turn. Well, make that 18 riders now, as one nearly dropped off and he gets back into the action. But look at the action out on the outside of that turn. A lot of riders jockeying for position on the inside. Other riders elected to sweep outside. It looked like as many elected to go outside as inside this week. And that creates a lot of wheel banging that takes place out there. As we said, 19 riders, one to beat out there. 328 Nathan Comer from Philadelphia, Mississippi, as he's actually able to take a 1-1 on the weekend and dominate the Production A class. Russell Shoemaker, though, tried to keep him as honest as possible. Shoemaker riding the number 66 from Bristol, Wisconsin. Also out there, the 131 of Chad Sumner from Silva, North Carolina. The 74 of Aaron Meyer from Harrison, Ohio. 75 of Casey Martin from Frenchburg, Kentucky. 357 of Hunter Johnson from Metter, Georgia. 61 of Donnie Miller from Wendell, North Carolina. The 188 of Chris Williams from Gate City, Florida. The 39 of James Silpy from Hatfield, Pennsylvania. 313 Michael Lahote out of Cambridge, Ohio. The 81 of Cody Grant from Oakland, Kentucky. The number 13 Tom Lawford out of Randolph, Massachusetts. 52 of Luke Beachy from Akron, Ohio. The 28 of Joseph Rooney from Chardon, Ohio. Christopher Holton aboard the number 19 machine from Madison, New York. The 25 of Eric Denoble from Denmark, Wisconsin. 123 Eric Denoble, or Nick Denoble out of Denmark, Wisconsin. 162 of Philip Baps from Beaver, Ohio. The number 80 of Jeffrey Thompson out of Hanover, Pennsylvania. As you can see, battling was not easy. Hunter Johnson actually took a 5th place aboard the number 357 in the second moto after finishing up 9th place in moto number 1. And as we take a look at his results, that was good enough for an overall 6, but it was Comer, Sumner, Shoemaker, Meyer, and Martin rounding out your top 5 in our Production A class as we look at our Moose Racing results here from these 2 motos of racing here at Muddy Creek Raceway. Moving on in the program next to our Production B class. Total of 21 riders vying for the top 20 spots on the gate, so that means one rider had to sit from the fences and watch this race unfold in Moto number 2. However, Moto number 1, we've seen that the 151 of Andrew Travis was one of the guys beat out there out of Warren, Pennsylvania. Also the 125 of Johnny Jackson from Cookeville, Tennessee, as they both took a moto win, but when the smoke all settled for the weekend, they ended up finishing 6th and 7th overall as far as the weekend was concerned. Taking a look at the riders out there on the course, they included the 87 of Mark Winchester out of Kingsville, Ohio, the number 6 of Chris Bowen from Land Lakes, Florida, 2011 of Matthew Bremer from Palm Bay, Florida, number 14 William Cottage from Industry, Pennsylvania, 38 of David Hantanis out of Hatfield, Pennsylvania, the 487 of Matthew Simmons from Wheatfield, Indiana, the number 8 of Mark Ray from Greenback, Tennessee, the number 40 of Jeremy Blackburn from Raccoon, Kentucky, number 27 Zachary Thomas out of Whipple, Ohio, the number 18 of Ryan Collins from Jackson, Tennessee, Evan Vandevander, number 11 Slash from Hampton, Georgia, the number 7 of Josh Bateman from Spring, Texas, the 51 of Matthew Butler from Manitoba, Virginia, the number 81 Yamaha Melvin Jeffers from Transburg, Illinois, the 11 of Chad Raymond from Geneva, Ohio, 28 of Chris Kemp from Greensboro, Tennessee, 228 of Larry Clemens from Hamilton, New Jersey, 121 of Merrill Savage from Doyle, Tennessee, and 37 of Andrew Pentoski from Demont, Indiana. Unfortunately, it looks like that Andrew Pentoski was the one that did not make it. Unfortunate for him. As we check back there a little further, we see riders like Andrew Travis, the 151, leading his division race out there in moto number 1. And it all comes to fall apart on him in moto number 2 as he took a 6th place finish out there. We see there the number 28 making his way by. That's Chris Kemp. Kemp took a 5th place finish in moto number 1, but did not even start in moto number 2. So he was not even a factor out there after riding so hard and so well in that first moto of racing. Other riders we see making their way around. We saw the number 6 going by there. That would have been Chris Bowen. Bowen finishing 3-3 for the overall second on the weekend. So you can see consistency can pay off for you out there on the race course, and inconsistency can definitely take you back to the pack. As Winchester takes the win, Bowen in 2nd, Bremer 3rd, Cottage 4th, Hutanis in 5th. And that's a look at your Moose Racing Production B results here from the Tennessee Spring National at Muddy Creek Raceway. Again, round 8 of the ITP Moose Racing ATVA National Motocross Championship Series. So we head on to the Production C class now, and it looks like 17 riders vying for the top spot here this weekend. Who's going to be the man to do it? As we head into that first turn, it looks like it's early on going to be that number 339 of Michael Boatner from Philadelphia, Mississippi. And actually, Boatner is looking like he's going to be pretty fast, but eventually, the number 22 of Matt Shapaka is able to get around. The Orville, Ohio rider actually takes a Moto 1 and Moto 2 win to win the overall. There we see Zachary Cahill out of Chesapeake, Virginia, the 999 there just a few moments ago, as he spun out in Moto 1. But he ends up finishing a 12th place position finish, so some redemption for him out there, and a 14th in moto number 2 to round out the overall top 12. As consistency again seems to pay off for these riders. The better they did and were able to continue to do in the second moto, obviously the better off they were going to be come moto number 2. Other riders out there include Matt Shapak, as we said, aboard the 22, 339 of Michael Boatner, John Sayer, the number 35 out of Fairfield, Ohio, Chris Monty out of Boston, North Carolina, aboard the 89, the 87 of Brian Evans from Palm Bay, Florida, the 117 Mike Jackson from Conneaut, Ohio, the 783 of Casey Woodside from Franklin, Tennessee, the 13 of Brandon Welp from Ferdinand, Indiana, the 70 of Richard Dalton from Saluda, North Carolina, the number 10 of David Edwards from Springfield, Tennessee, the number 623 of Bobby Wilkerson from Murray, Kentucky, the 999 of Zachary Cahill from Chesapeake, Virginia, the 52 of Joel Johnson from Clinton, Mississippi, 909 of Jose Fonseca from Miami, Florida, the 210 of Matthew Cash from Mount Airy, Georgia, and the 100 of Rocky Pickle from Withyville, Virginia, and the number 578 of Justin Hicks from Bristol, Virginia. Tough break for both Pickle and Hicks as they did not start either one of these 2 motos of racing, so evidently things happened to them before the racing action got underway. But it was Shapaka, Boatner, Sayer, Monty, and Evans rounding out your top 5 on our Moose Racing Production C results here after 2 motos of racing at Muddy Creek Raceway. Next up, Pro Moto number 1 here at the Tennessee ATV Spring National at Muddy Creek Raceway. Joe Bird, your current points leader, eyeing down the starting line. John Natale also giving it a look over as well, as he is second place in the points. And the rider that is moving up through the point standings right now, Jeremiah Jones, also getting a good look at that starting line here today as we get set to go racing. Another rider that's been coming on strong as of late, Well, the youngsters, the 191 of Dustin Wimmer we've seen there underneath the shade of the umbrella here on a very hot and muggy weekend at Muddy Creek Raceway as we head into turn number 1. Moto number 1. Gate is down and our riders through the first turn. At least most of them. It looks like the number 12 of Keith Little grabs the early lead. There's Pat Brown. There's Dunkelberger. He's stuck in turn number 1. Tough break for him as these riders are going to try to get it all sorted out as we go back and take a look at this one more time in our ITP hole shot. Dunkelberger on the Lost Creek Cycle Suzuki. Not going to be much of a factor here in Moto 1. There is the number 12 of Keith Little. He is your early leader. Back in the number 2 spot, looks like Goodman has gotten off to a strong start aboard the number 708. And there's Wimmer back about a 6th or 7th place position as we take a look at that ITP hole shot one more time. As you can see, riders heading into that first turn. It's almost neck and neck as we look toward the peak. Things start to funnel down just a little bit. A little bump and grind going on inside there. That looked like Natali and Lawson getting together. Actually, it was Goodman and Lawson getting together. Spader back there in the number 3 spot. But the man with the ITP hole shot award, that's Keith Little aboard the number 12 Honda as we head back out on the opening lap. And look at this. It is Little still out front. And Spader passes into the number 2 spot now aboard the number 30. And it looks like Spader is going to try to start to knock on the door for the number 1 spot. Looks like Spader has finally gotten off to a good start and showing what he is capable of doing. A former champion in this National Motocross Championship Series, sets out a couple of years and decides to come back. And he is slow coming back, but the thing about it is he is doing it the right way. He is not pushing himself too much. He is figuring out what the competition has been able to achieve over the course of the last few years. But up front, it is Spader now knocking on the door. Little will he be able to get around as we check back into that number 3 spot. Things are very tight back there as well, as it looks like Goodman is holding steady back there aboard the number 708. But he's got company being pressured by that 4th place rider right now. But look at this, Spader trying to go in and make a pass. Not going to be able to make it happen. That looks like Lawson in the 4th place position. Our Suzuki riders, 5th and 6th, Doug Gus and Jeremiah Jones. Where's the number 7 of Joe Bird? Where's the number 13 of John Natali? We got some sorting out to do here in the early part of this ATV Spring National here at Muddy Creek, the Tennessee Spring National. And what a battle already as we see that a lot of riders are jockeying for position out there. And as the season wears on, we're just past the halfway point, heading into the second half of a 14-round season in this 2006 ITP Moose Racing year. And things are really getting pretty crunch and munch out there as these riders are trying to position themselves for a points chase at the end of this year, or at least getting into a top 10 or a top 5 as far as the overall is concerned. Lawson in the number 4 spot, Jones in 5th, Gus 6th, Natali 7th, Bird is 8th, Havistow running 9th, Wimmer rounding out your top 10. Then it's Corey Ellis, Trent Candell, Pat Brown, Bush, then Dunkelberger in 15th, and the number 66 of Meeks. Greg Meeks rounds out your top 16, the 16 riders. And look at this. Looks like a pass being made by the number 708 of Harold Goodman on the number 30 of Spader. So Goodman moves into the number 2 spot. Meanwhile, still out front, the number 12 of Keith Little out of Russellville, Alabama. He is in command and control early on here. And this is someplace that we're not used to seeing Keith Little in a motocross race, but he looks like things are coming on strong for him as we've been seeing stronger and stronger finishes out of him. And if he can keep doing this consistently, Keith Little could become a force and a factor as he's moving his way up through as far as the overall points in the championship points race is concerned. He's now into a top 10 position. But Goodman into a number 2 spot here in this race in Pro Moto number 1 here at Muddy Creek Raceway. Now look at this, back up to 3rd. It's Jeremiah Jones. Jones moving up a couple there. Spader drops off to 4th, and Doug Gus rounds out your top 5 as we take a look at your Parts Unlimited leaderboard. The man to keep an eye on right now seems to be the number 2 of Jeremiah Jones, who's moved from 5th to 3rd place in the course of the last lap of racing. So he is on the move, and he's got both 2nd and 1st place positions well within his sights right now, and he is capable, more than capable, before this moto is over. Unless these riders have brought their A-game to the racetrack today and are able to fend off the advancements of Jeremiah Jones, we're going to have to wait and see. Little up front, back in 2nd, the 708 of Harold Goodman. Right now, Jones is working on Goodman for that number 2 spot. All the while, Keith Little enjoying the number 1 spot. But while the positioning is going on back behind him for 2nd place, the battling back there is actually pushing that 2nd place position up into contention there just a little bit. And look at this. Looks like things are really tightening up for that number 1 spot as Little feeling pressure from both the number 708 of Goodman and the number 2 of Jeremiah Jones. Will Keith Little be able to hold up to the pressure for as long as it's going to take? Early in the moto right now, he's still got a long way to go in this 20-minute plus 1 lap moto, but right now he's in command. But look at this, here comes Jones sliding into the number 2 spot as he gets around Goodman for 2nd. What a beautifully executed move on that off-camber section. It comes down and then it gets off-camber as they make that horseshoe turn up toward the last drive before the finish line. And we may see some more passing taking place there, as it looks like Jeremiah Jones has found a favorite place, or what seems to be a fairly favored place for him to make some passing take place here at Muddy Creek Raceway. Again, they are running this in the complete opposite direction they've ever ran this race course as far as ATV racing, at least in the last 8 or 10 years or so. So this is an all-new race track for these riders. It's not a new facility, but a new race course, so no one really has an advantage here. Look at this. Jeremiah Jones pulls up side by side with Keith Little and makes the pass over that little rhythm section, and now Jeremiah Jones is strapped on the afterburners as he pushes go, and he is gone. The gap between first and second starting to open up. Little, who's back there in the number 2 spot's got a lot on his mind, not only the racing game this weekend, but also going to be getting married in just 1 week. So this is kind of one of those races. He's going to let it all hang out before the wedding bells start to ring in a week from now. But right now, second place is he's trying to hold on to that as the 708 of Goodman still back there in the number 3 spot. And we've got some changes up front. Where's Joe Bird? Where's John Natale right now? Natale up to a 4th place position. And Jeremy Lawson putting in another strong ride here today as he rounds out your top 5. But all eyes are up front in that battle for second place as Goodman now trying to challenge Little for that second place position. He smells blood after Jeremiah Jones is able to make the pass in only a half a lap or so before this. So he is trying to strike while the striking is good right now as they head into that off-camber section. On the outside is Little. On the inside is the number 708 of Goodman. And they swap back and forth. But Little holds on to the number 2 spot. Goodman still back in 3rd, but look who's sneaking up behind him right now. The number 13 of John Natale working his way up through the pack into a 4th place position. And this rider wants to move up as far as he can to try to challenge Jeremiah Jones for that number 1 spot. But he's got 2 riders to get through in order to do that. And that is Little and the 708 of Goodman. But it looks like Natale makes easy work of Goodman as now Natale moves into the 3rd place position and sets its sights on the number 12 of Keith Little for the 2nd place spot. And Little knows he's back there and he feels him coming on this hard-packed, dry, dusty race course here in Muddy Creek, Tennessee. It's actually Bluntville, Tennessee, the 2006 Tennessee ATV Spring National being led by Jeremiah Jones out of Bowling Green, Kentucky as he makes his way around the ITP Horseshoe. There's Little now feeling the pressure. Behind him is the number 13 of John Natale, Goodman in 4th, and Doug Gus now rounds out your top 5 with 4 laps in the history books. But right now, we keep an eye on that battle for second place. Little, who got off to a blistering fast start here in Moto number 1, is now dropped off to a 2nd place position. Natale has had to work his way up through the pack and is now into a 3rd place spot, and that is where the heated battle is. Meanwhile, lots of other riders trying to work their way up through the pack, including Joe Bird, who's on the move himself aboard the number 7 machine. But again, we watch this battle for second as it looks like Natale is going to make the pass on Little. Goodman still back in 4th place, and 5th place still the number 55 of Doug Gust, but Gust has got plenty of company coming up behind him in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th place position, and one of those riders includes your number 7 and current points leader here in this 2006 season, Joe Bird on the Joe Bird Quad Racing School. But all eyes are staying on these top 5 right now. Jones, Natale, Goodman, Little dropping back to a 4th place position now as he finds all kinds of troubles out on the race course. And Doug Gus still back in 5th. Will Gus be able to get around the number 12 of Little as well and put Little back to 5th place? Still got to say hats off to Keith Little as he's holding on to a top 5 ride right now and his best showing so far in this 2006 season, except for Moto number 1 of the start of the season out at Glen Helen Raceway. He's been trying to find that mojo, that magic, ever since then, and it looks like just past the halfway point, he has found it. Will he be able to keep it? We're going to have to wait and see. Right now, though, currently in the number 2 spot, John Natale looking behind him, trying to size up the competition back there to see where Joe Bird is aboard that number 7 Joe Bird Quad Riding School Honda. And he knows he's back there about 7th place right now, so Natale sets his sights once more on the number 2 of Jeremiah Jones. But keeping the faith today, the 708 of Harold Goodman, the B has come to life, and he's buzzing around these hills here in Tennessee. Battle for second still on as that one heats up. Right now, working his way up through the pack is Bird. Gust up to a 4th place position. He's got coming. There is Bird in 5th place now. Little drops off the 6th. Back in 7th place, the 16 of Jeremy Lawson as we take a look at our ticker now. Bird, as we said, in 5th place. It is Little in 6th. Jeremy Lawson in 7th place. The number 75 of Joe Havistow in 8th place. 9th place, the 199 of Pat Brown. And rounding out the top 10 is Dustin Wimmer. Spader dropping all the way back to an 11th place position. And look at this challenge that Goodman is still putting on the number 13 of John Natale. John Natale has been known so far in this 2006 racing season, and it's no secret to anyone out there. As these motos wear on, especially in these hot days, we see the number 13 begin to fade. But today, it looks like Natale is doing just the opposite. He is coming on as this moto wears on here in Tennessee. Will he be at his peak whenever the checker flag come out, and will he be able to reel in the number 2 of Jeremiah Jones to mount a challenge here in moto number 1 of round number 8? And this could be a lot to help John Natale as far as the points race is concerned, because the momentum of moto number 1 could carry over to moto number 2. And right now we know that Bird is back there struggling. He's had to work his way up through the pack. He's up to a 5th place position right now. You got to wonder, will he be able to get very much further than that? He's got some young talent ahead of him right now that are going to try their best to keep him at bay. And if they do that, I know that John Natale will be going out through the pits between motos and saying thanks to a lot of individuals that are going to help keep the gap between him and Joe Bird and this points chase in the latter half of the season. Look at the gap, though, between first and second. Looks like Natale is finally starting to settle into a comfortable pace in that number 2 spot. Meanwhile, Goodman still back in 3rd. But here comes the number 55 of Doug Gus from the 4th place position. He is beginning to mount a little bit of a challenge, which is going to give the number 13 of Natale a little bit of breathing room, unless that actually makes the 708 of Goodman rise to the occasion. We might see a 3-way battle for 2nd place shaping up, with John Natale being under pressure. And again, a hot weekend here in Tennessee. Will Natale be able to rise to the occasion? They call him the Iron Man, and I know he's been doing a lot of training as of lately, trying to get himself back up to par as far as conditioning is concerned. Look at our Parts Unlimited leaderboard. Jones, Natale, Goodman, Gus, and Joe Bird rounding out your top 5. Currently in that number 2 spot, we see that Natale is starting to fade back as far as the gap between 1st and 2nd place between he and Jeremiah Jones right now, but he's still in a solid 2nd place position. I think that right now John Natale, probably the best thing that he can do to try to conserve as much energy as possible is to ride smart and finish a good, strong 2nd place position here in moto number 1. But I don't know if that's going to be the easy thing to do, because Digger Doug Gus just gets around the 708 of Goodman now, and Joe Bird is now striking from back in 5th place as he's challenging Goodman aboard the number 708. But as we said, Gus is up to a 3rd place position, and it doesn't look like John Natale is going to get any breathing room whatsoever as far as the remainder of Pro Moto number 1 here at Muddy Creek Raceway in the Tennessee ATV Spring National, round number 8 of the 2006 ITP Moose Racing ATVA National Motocross Championship Series, presented by Parts Unlimited and brought to you in part by your friends at Suzuki, the choice of champions, and of course our friends at ATV Sport Magazine. Jones just trying to bide his time till he sees the checker flag and can take home a moto number 1 win. You got to wonder, with temperatures in the mid-90s right now and heat indexes up near 100 degrees, whether or not it is beginning to take its toll on these riders. I know that they'll probably be looking for the nearest shade tree when the checkers finally do unveil here at Muddy Creek Raceway. Look at the gap, though, between 1st and 2nd place, and Natale had all that breathing room for about a lap and a half or so, now has none, as Digger Doug Gus has dug deep and worked his way up through the pack, and now mounting a challenge for that number 2 position. Right now, though, Natale still got a little bit of a comfort zone there, but all it takes is one little bit of a mistake, one little bit of lost traction out there, a half a second of momentum loss will definitely tighten things up out there for that number 2 position. And John Natale has got to ride flawlessly right now to keep Digger Doug Gus from making the pass here in moto number 1. Here they come through the rhythm section, over the tabletops. Natale under pressure. Digger Doug Gus pulls up side by side. Looks like Gus has got the advantage. Will he be able to keep it into the next turn? Yes, he does, and Doug Gus moves into 2nd place. Natale now drops off to 3rd, but he's going to try to strike back. Will he be able to do it? Yes, he does. Natale right back, but here comes Gus again, and Gus gets right back around. Those riders switching back and forth for that 2nd place position, but it looks like Gus has solidified the number 2 spot. About 15 seconds down now in the number 2 position as we still see that Natali trying to strike back and is not going to be able to do it, at least right now. The number 7 of Joe Bird back there. Man, what a battle. And we still got a little ways to go here in Moto number 1. Jeremiah Jones appears to be the only comfortable rider out on the racetrack right now, as all these positions seems to be tightening up quite a bit. Natali still on the rear wheels of Doug Gus, number 55, and right there behind him waiting for anything to happen in the strike is the consistent man for this 2006 racing season, Joe Bird, who so far has not finished out of the top 5 in all of his runnings in the first 7 rounds of racing. He actually has 2 wins. He's been on the podium every time except for Gainesville, Florida, when he took an overall 5th place position after breaking a shock in Moto number 1. He finished 15th, comes back for the win in the second moto and an overall 5th place position. So Joe Bird has had luck on his side so far here in 2006, and though he has a points lead heading into this round, he is not counting a championship before this season is over. He knows anything can happen before that final race, the 14th round, happens and takes place in Bowling Green, Kentucky, before he can declare himself a champion of the 2006 ITP Moose Racing season. The battling is on. Natali now feeling the pressure from Bird back there in the 3rd place position as they both try to keep pace with the 55 of Doug Gus right now, as Gus trying to reel in that gap. About a 15-second gap is what it opened up to, but back down to about 12 seconds now for Gus. But look back here in 3rd. Here comes the number 7 of Joe Bird. This right here is actually the battle for the points lead right now as we battle it out for 3rd place here in Moto number 1. These riders could take this momentum from Moto number 1 and carry it into Moto number 2, and it could be what separates these guys as far as the points are concerned in the championship at the end of this 8th round of racing, and this could start to shake things up as far as the rest of the series is concerned as well. But right now, Natali is fending off the number 7 of Joe Bird. Lap number 8 is what we're working on here at Muddy Creek Raceway. Just a few laps to go as Jeremiah Jones, commander and controller here in Tennessee. This will be the first moto he's been able to win here in Tennessee. He's had some good runnings in the amateur ranks, but never had a great showing as far as the pro ranks are concerned here in Tennessee. But today, things are different. They've turned the track around backwards, and Jeremiah Jones's luck has turned around here at Muddy Creek as well, and he is showing the fans here a great battle. But the battle pack behind him is where I think a lot of attention is right now, as they're enjoying watching Jeremiah Jones ride. They're enjoying watching the number 7 of Joe Bird try to make the pass on the 13 of Natali. Looked like he had him there for just a moment, but could not make the pass stick, but he's coming right back at him once more in the ITP Horseshoe now. Here comes Bird, side by side as they make their way out of this turn, each using a different line. Will that line work for Bird this time around? No. John Natali drifts out, cuts the line off, and Joe Bird holds on to 4th place, but still challenging the number 13 of Natali again for 3rd place. Again, that is your 2 points leader in the championship. Neither one of these riders are wanting to let too much hang out here because they don't want to take themselves out too early in the season. It's too early to let things really push themselves into a confrontation here in this 8th of 14 rounds. We're just 7 rounds complete, and we're heading into the last 7 rounds of racing. So smart riding is the key for both of these riders, and it looks like Joe Bird is doing just that. He is just basically feeling out the defending champ, John Natali, right now, trying to find out what lines he's protecting and what lines he's able to protect and not able to protect. And you better bet that Joe Bird is going to try to strike out there before this moto is all said and done to take a podium position finish in moto number 1. Will the defending champ allow him to do it? That question remains to be answered as we conclude yet another lap of racing here at Muddy Creek Raceway. It is Jeremiah Jones up front, the number 55 of Doug Gus in 2nd, and John Natali currently barely hanging on to the number 3 spot. Back behind them right now, we've got Harold Goodman aboard the number 708 trying to hold on to a top 5 ride. The question remains, will he be able to do that and post one of his best finishes so far in the 2006 season as well? Lots of things taking place over the course of the first 7 rounds of racing. We've seen a lot of riders that were struggling in the early part of the season, whether it would be bad luck or whether luck they made themselves just by silly mistakes. They're getting things turned around here late in the season, and this is really heating up the championship, not only for the overall, but all the way through the top 10 in this 2006 ITP Moose Racing ATV National Motocross Championship Series. A hot day here in Tennessee, not only by the temperatures, but by the racing on the race course. You cannot measure this on a thermometer, I don't think, right now, the battles that we have had here for the top 3 positions in Moto number 1. With a moto like this, you got to wonder what's going to happen in Moto number 2. Starts are going to be very crucial as these riders head down past the mechanics area. You can see that they're telling John Natale to hold steady and fight off the number 7 of Joe Bird. Joe Bird's mechanic is telling him to go, 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 strike hard and strike fast and make the pass and move into that third place position. Will he be able to do it? Jeremiah Jones, though, unless some sort of mechanical failure happens here on this final lap of racing, is going to walk away with the history books Moto number 1 win. We'll find out whether he's able to do it 2 consecutive motos or not here today. But right now, Digger Doug Gus back in second. Third place, Natale and Bird. And it looks like, at least right now, that Natale is going to be able to fend off Joe Bird. But right now, he strikes and moves into the third place position. Joe Bird was watching for the opportunity to open up, and of course it did, and he strikes and strikes hard. And look at this now. Bird is starting to pull away from Natale, and Natale has nothing left for him to try to strike back, at least in the early part of this pass. Less than a lap to go, and Joe Bird is on a rail in the number 3 spot. It's almost as if he waited to that final lap of racing to push John Natale as far as he could through the envelope there to try to wear him out so that Natale would not be able to strike back, and that's exactly what he has done. So now Bird securely in third, Natale securely back in the 4th place position, Gus secure in the number 2 spot, but it looks like even Bird might be trying to smell a little bit of second place there. He has got the scent, and he is in the hunt. Will he be able to reel him in? I know that it is going to take a mistake on the part of Doug Gus at this point, or a major slowdown. Maybe Gus is starting to feel the heat himself, as he is from Wisconsin, and he's not used to these extreme temperatures that we're feeling here in the early part of summer in this ITP Moose Racing ATV National Championship Series. Look at that battle back for the 6th place position. We see that Havasto battling it with the number 708 of Harold Goodman, but Jeremiah Jones up front on his way home to the checker flag. Less than a half a lap, about a quarter lap to go here. Doug Gus in the number 2 spot. Joe Bird in third. He is closing the gap up a little bit, but it's not going to be enough as they are charging for the checkers. I guess that it looks to me like that maybe the number 13 of Natale might be wondering and worrying about what's going on behind him, because the number 708 of Goodman is beginning to reel him in, and it looks as though that Natale, unless he picks the pace back up, might be pressured for the 4th place spot here late in this motos as Jeremiah Jones takes the win. Gus in second, Bird third, Natale fourth. Goodman rounds out your top 5. Then it's Havaso, Brown, Lawson, Little, and Wimmer as we look at our Parts Unlimited leaderboard.
I think it was just the bike was suited to track. You know, the track come to us this afternoon for the qualifier, and we run up strong with the bike, and I'm very happy and pleased with everybody at the tent this weekend. It'd be gratifying to me if I can at least get up there and try to battle for it in the second moto and maybe take the win. Who knows, but anything can happen, and I'll hopefully try my dangest for the second moto.
Jeremiah snuck by me. He got through traffic a little easier than me, and he was running a good race. I got in the second. I was happy with that, and hopefully I can do a little better in the second moto.
Yeah, track was real good that moto. If they do the same thing for the second moto, I mean, you can see once they put some split lanes in there and they killed it up in some corners, it's some good racing. It's definitely passable.
Back into the amateur racing on this hot weekend of racing at the Tennessee ATV Spring National. Muddy Creek Raceway, round 8 of this ITP Moose Racing ATV Series. Gate drops on the 16 to 24-year-old class. Got a total of 20 riders in this one, and a couple of riders getting off to some good starts out there, including the 491 of Brian King from Grindstone, Pennsylvania. Other riders including the 188 of Chris Williams out of Dade City, Florida. The number 313 of Michael Lahote from Cambridge, Ohio. The 32 of Justin Norman out of Lawndale, North Carolina. 25 of Eric Knoble from Denmark, Wisconsin. 7/ Devin Himes from Zephyr Hills, Florida. The 13 of Thomas Mofford. He's out of Randolph, Massachusetts. The 123 of Nick Knoble from Denmark, Wisconsin. Number 4 of Cody Brown from Mount Alsting, Texas. Jonathan Van John on the Yamaha number 2 out of Eureka, Missouri. 718 of Zach Martin from Middletown, Ohio. The 54/ of John Macwish out of Pipersville, Pennsylvania. The 404 of Taylor Conductor. He's out of North Apollo, Pennsylvania. 26 of Austin Flash. He's out of Montrose, Illinois. 64 of Kyle Damon out of Duncansville, Pennsylvania. 180 of Lauren Klein from Ferdinand, Indiana. 131 of Jonathan DeRosa from Chester, New Jersey. Other riders out there included the 489 of Justin Keith from Plus City, Tennessee. 456 of Dave Compton out of Johnson City, Tennessee. And a 151 of Josh Holyfield from Grover, North Carolina. But all eyes are on the 491 as both Moto 1 and Moto 2 unveil here in Muddy Creek. It is Brian King who takes a Moto 1 and a Moto 2 win. In Moto number 1, second place position finish is going to go to the number 123 of Nick DeNoble. DeNoble from Denmark, Wisconsin has troubles in moto number 2 as he actually finishes up 13th out there. Rider number 188, Chris Williams, has a tough first moto with a 7th place finish, but actually comes back in the second moto to battle for the win in moto number 2. But when it all breaks down, Brian King takes the overall. Chris Williams in second with a 7-2. Lahote in third. Justin Norman fourth. And Eric DeNoble rounds out your top 5 with a 5-6. Moving on to our plus 25 class, riders at least 25 years of age and older in this division. Right now, point standings show that Dane Heilman is the man to beat aboard the number 07 out of Richland, Indiana. As the gate drops and we head into turn number 1, we see exactly why as he grabs the early lead. He's got company back there. The 419 of Chase Cunningham out of Moorhead, Kentucky, but tough break there for that number 51 machine of Jeff Hatmaker out of Knoxville, Tennessee. DNF's in moto number 1 because of the problems we see there in the first turn. But as this race wears on in the plus 25 class, Dane Heilman holds on to the lead. It looks like a battle back there with Chase Cunningham, the 419, and the number 93 of Dwayne Newton out of Lightfield, Kentucky. He's on that Yamaha. He'll actually finish up second in this first moto when it's all said and done. As we said, Chase Cunningham is out there. Also the 33 of Lane Coyle. He's out of Winder, Georgia. The 44 of Joe Scarrow. He's out of Wayne, Michigan. 208 of Christopher Boothie out of Dwight, Ontario, Canada. 45 of Casey Calhoun from Ladd, South Carolina. The 411, Tally Williams out of Cosby, Tennessee. 77 of Ryan Vaughn. He's out of Harrisburg, Illinois. The 94 of Kevin Birchfield out of Maryville, Tennessee. The number 40 of Daryl Dudley from Morgantown, West Virginia. The number 51 of Jeff Hatmaker out of Knoxville, Tennessee. The 798 of Travis Mathis. He's out of Elizabethton, Tennessee. And the 844 of John James out of Bristol, Tennessee. Tough starts for Mathis and James, though. Both of those guys not scoring points in either one of these motos, so they finish up 13th, 14th, respectively, DNSing in both Moto 1 and Moto 2. A rider that did not DNS, though, the number 07 of Dane Heilman. As you see, the 93 of Dwayne Newton moving up into that second place position. Third place finish here in this first moto. John Scarrow aboard the number 44, the fourth place rider, the 33 of Lane Coyle. And Chase Cunningham drops from a second place position in the early part of this moto back to a fifth place finish, where that's where he finishes in the first moto. We see Ryan Vaughn, the number 77, working his way by. He'll get an 8th place finish in moto number 1. The 411 of Tally Williams from Cosby, Tennessee, actually gets the 9th place finish in moto number 1. And this is the way it all breaks down. Dane Heilman takes the overall. Newton in second. Cunningham in third after Cunningham finishes second in the second moto. Then it's Coyle and Scarrow, 4th and 5th. As we move on to the Bet Plus 30, riders 30 years of age and older. 20 riders trying to get it all sorted out here as the gate drops in moto number 1. We're going to keep an eye out for the number 71 of Brian Giles from Maplesville, Alabama. But early lead going to go to what looks like the 81 of Jeremy Giles from Brandon, Mississippi. He's going to eventually drop off to about a 10th place position before this moto is all said and done. A tough start from the number 34 of Bill Shields out there out of Greenwood, Missouri. Other riders out there include, though, the early leader. You see the 131 machine. Actually, that's 181 of Jacob Rosa from Long Valley, New Jersey, who has the early lead. But we'll see if he's able to hang on to it. Looks like he actually drops off the 9th before the moto is all said and done. Riders that we're watching in this moto, the Bet Plus 30, include the 71 of Brian Giles from Maplesville, Alabama, the 50 of Randy Hurst from Brooks, Kentucky, who has a good solid ride here in moto number 1. 33 of Lane Kyle from Winder, Georgia. 331 of Tommy Sumner out of Silva, North Carolina. The 81 of Jeremy Giles from Brandon, Mississippi. 131 of Robert Cagle from South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. The 15 of Richard Slayton from Mansfield, Texas. 51 of Justin Reeves from Sandersonville, Tennessee. The 99 of Joshua Lawson from Crossville, Tennessee. 26 Ronnie Province from Cane Hill, Arkansas. The 34 Bill Shields from Greenwood, Missouri. 96 Kevin Kern from Plant City, Florida. 64 Sean Williams from Cosby, Tennessee. The 181 of Jay DeRosa from Long Valley, New Jersey. 112 of Kyle Eaton from Webster, Florida. 37 of Trip DeVault from Ludlow, Massachusetts. 48 Hank DeHart out of Ridgeway, Virginia. The 65 of Brett Jones from Leesburg, Florida. The 539 of CD Music from Vernonville, West Virginia. And the 638 of James Malito out of Wilkinson, West Virginia. And in moto number 2, just to give you a heads up what takes place there, Richard Slayton, the number 15 machine, actually finished 12th in Moto number 1, redeems himself in the second moto as he takes the second moto win. That's still only good enough for an overall second for him. Now, Brian Giles, the number 71, who controls Moto number 1, finishes up in a third-place position in Moto number 2, but it's still good enough for him to take the overall win as he does it with a 1-3. Randy Hurst, who finished second in Moto 1, takes a 5th in Moto 2 for the overall second. Then it's Lane Coyle, Tommy Sumner, and Jeremy Giles rounding out the top 5 in our Moose Racing Bet 30+ results. Moving up the ladder now in our race ranks, it's the Senior Plus 40 class. Riders 40 years of age and older in this one. And we got a total of 11 riders in this one, with some of the top riders in the nation as far as our 40+ class is concerned. And one of those is the number 112 of Tasmanian Tommy Tantillo, but not before he makes a hard day of it trying to work through the 44 of James Perry there out of Adolphus, Kentucky. Trouble in that first turn, but look at this. Jeff Rastrelli, number 28, he has the son that races out there in the youth ranks. He's out of Palm City, Florida, gets out to the lead as he works his way around some of those other riders, Perry being one of those. Perry actually, as Moto 1 wears on, will drop off to a 4th-place position. And Tasmanian Tommy Tantillo does it once more here in the Senior Plus 40 class as he's able to work into the number 1 position as the moto wears on out of Manorville, New York. Other riders to watch out for out there, the number 11 of Anthony Capano out of Waldorf, Maryland. The 87 of Eric Rice from Pine Grove, West Virginia. The 65 of Johnny Ledbetter out of Wallen, Tennessee. The 132 of Tim Frady from Sylva, North Carolina. The 44, as we said, of James Perry. The 307 of Todd Gaiola out of Bethlehem, Connecticut. The 186 of Dwayne DeReamer out of Laurel, Maryland. And the 999 of Randy Wolf from Knoxville, Tennessee. Tough break for Wolf, though, as he DNS'd in Moto number 1. and was not much of a factor in Moto number 2 either. But as we said, Tommy Tantillo, the cream rises to the top, as they say. As we see that Tantillo ends up taking a Moto 1 win there. We see that he's got his work cut out for him, trying to get around some of that traffic. He's gotten around Jeff Rastrelli there. As Rastrelli actually holds on to take the second in Moto number 1 and does it for Moto number 2. So consistency pays off for Tantillo and Rastrelli both there as they go 1-2 in Moto 1 and Moto 2 for the overall first and second. Anthony Capano, a 6-3, good enough for an overall third, followed by Eric Rice in fourth, and Johnny Ledbetter rounding out your top 5 in our Senior Plus 40 results here at Muddy Creek, Tennessee. In between the motos, we see a lot of autograph signing going on there as Joe Bird signing some champagne bottles from previous races, and some of our amateur racers getting ready to go racing here in the hot Tennessee sun of our Tennessee ATV Spring National. On to our women's production class now, what some deem as our professional women's class here at the ATV National Motocross Championship Series. Top 5 riders here this weekend include the number 7 Honda out of Wayne, Michigan of Melissa Kufel, the number 23 of Jamie Jones from Bowling Green, Kentucky, the wife of Jeremiah Jones, the number 113 Michelle Reiser from Houtzdale, Pennsylvania, the girlfriend of John Natale, the number 1 of Heather Bird from Union City, Tennessee, and the number 2 of Angela Butler from Levine, Arizona. Bird, by the way, the wife of Joe Bird, and Angela Butler, the wife of Scott Butler, another ATV enthusiast down here on the ATV Nationals Tour. And of course, Angela Butler, you might remember her as Angela Moore from a few years back. Heather Bird used to be known as Heather Rose. Just a little FYI for you out there if you followed the ATV racing maybe a few years back. We still got a lot of the top women's class riders out there. Just their names have changed just a little bit. Up front, Moto number 1, it's all Heather Bird aboard the number 1 Honda. She is your defending champion. There's the number 2 of Angela Butler. Butler is trying to keep her honest and keep her, well, within striking distance throughout the entire moto. There's the number 113 of Michelle Reiser. Reiser actually running in 3rd place right now. She's got a pretty big comfort zone there over the number 7 of Melissa Kufel from Wayne, Michigan, who holds on to a 4th place finish throughout the entire moto here. And when the checkers come out, Jones will actually finish in the 5th place position. But when Moto 2 comes around, redemption time for Jones out there as she takes her Suzuki into the number 4 spot and is actually able to capture the overall 4th on the race day. Some changes also taking place in Moto number 2 between Butler and Bird, as we see Bird doing so well in Moto number 1. Well, things turn around for her, and she finds herself trying to play catch-up to Angela Butler out there as Butler moves into the number 1 spot and actually takes the second Moto win and the overall. Bird finishes up in second, Reiser third, Jones takes the overall 4th, and Melissa Kufel rounds out the top 5. On to the women's sport class now. About 12 riders participating in this one this weekend, and these are the future production class riders. The gate drops on this one. We got Jessica Dodery out there aboard the number 13. She's out of Cocoa, Florida. 26, Candace Lee from Four Oaks, North Carolina. The 14 of Adrian Cooper from Simi Valley, California. The 171 of Breanne Stout out of Martin, Tennessee. The 55 of Breanne Hansen from Mobile, Iowa. 832, Kelly Lanzer from Cambridge, Ohio. The 94 of Tammy White out of Maryville, Tennessee. 141, Chelsea Mantle from Kathleen, Florida. The 04 of Vicki Eaton from Webster, Florida. The 99 of Krista Marie from LaBerg, Tennessee. Also out there, the 111 of Kelly McKinney from Marion, North Carolina, and the 36 of Melissa Walker from Claremont, Florida. Moto number 1 saw the number 13 of Jessica Dodery out front. She was commander and controller of both Moto 1 and Moto number 2 in our women's sport class. We saw some battling back behind her, though, in the second place finish in Moto number 1. Breanne Stout, the number 171, getting off to a good, solid, strong run out there. Held on to it till the checkers flew, and she took a second in Moto number 1. And the third place position went to the number 14 of Adrian Cooper from Simi Valley, California. And actually, Cooper was able to finish up the weekend with a 3-3. Consistency pays off for her. And believe it or not, good enough for the overall third is Candace Lee, who took a 4th in Moto number 1, took a 2nd place finish in Moto number 2, and that was good enough to rocket her into an overall 2nd place position. She had her troubles out there as things did get jumbled up in Moto number 1 as opposed to the Moto number 2 finishes out there. Other riders that had good, strong finishes in the second Moto included the 55 of Breanne Hansen. That's took a 5th place finish in Moto 1, but a 4th place finish in Moto number 2 is good enough to round out the overall top 5. Breanne Stout, as we said, had taken 2nd in Moto 1, 5th in the second Moto. Kelly Lancer also switching things up for a 6th overall, took a 7th and a 6th. Tammy White a 6th and an 8th for the overall 7th. So you see some changes made the overall look a little bit different from Moto 1 to Moto number 2. And that's your women's sports class. We take a look at our Moose Racing results here. Moving on to the 4-stroke stock production class now. 8 riders in this one, and one of the more quiet race groups we see out on the race course. Sometimes you got to wonder, are they even running? But yeah, they are. They're production-based machines. Not a lot of changes can be made on these. As we see, the number 34 will grab the early lead there, and that is actually James Campbell out of Natural Bridge, Virginia, and trying to play catch-up back there. The 064, John Dantimo from Cartersville, Georgia, as he runs in an 8th place position to open up Moto number 1. Up front, though, the battling gets underway, and it looks like the 67 of Mario D'Angelo and the 557 of Adam Warren from Burlington, Wisconsin. By the way, D'Angelo out of Eldersburg, Maryland. Other riders out there on the race course include the 69 of Brandon May from Jefferson, Ohio, the 34 of James Campbell out of Natural Bridge, Virginia, the 42 of Ryan Costello out of Newhall, Iowa, the 023 of Terry Monroe out of Alma, West Virginia, the 064 of John Dantimo, as we said, out of Cartersville, Georgia, and the 798 of Travis Mathis out of Elizabethton, Tennessee. Looks like troubles for the 798 of Mathis, though, as he DNSs in both Moto 1 and Moto 2. That's a did not start, but the rest of these riders looks like, for the most part, stayed pretty consistent from Moto number 1 to Moto 2. Adam Warren took a 1-1 for the win on the weekend. Mario D'Angelo, the 67, went 2-2 for the overall second. Brandon May, a 3-3 for the overall third, as we see Warren making his way around the race course there aboard that 557 Suzuki machine. But things back behind in 4th place, 5th place, 6th place is where things started getting jumbled up as far as the overalls were concerned. James Campbell, who took a 4th place finish in Moto number 1, comes back with a 5th place finish in Moto number 2, but still good enough for the overall 4th, as the 4th place finisher there in the second Moto was the ATK rider of Ryan Costello, a 6'4", good enough for an overall 5th for him. Then Monroe, Dantimo, and Travis Mathis rounding out your field in our 4-stroke production results. Up next, our spotlight on Keith Little.
I started racing when I was about 13 years old at the local flat tracks. We actually started out at the drag races, and then it kind of turned into the flat track racing. And You know, I actually didn't start racing motocross until I was about 16. Yeah, back then when I first started, Gary Denton was always the champion, and Tim Farr was always an up-and-coming rider, and still today Tim's one of my favorite riders that I get to race against. It's crazy. I remember the first time I lined up next to Gary Denton at a TT race up in Pennsylvania, and it was a heat race, and I actually passed him on the last lap, and you know, I still remember that to this day, how, you know, just drove him hard into the corner, and then he blew the corner and I got to ride around him. So yeah, coming up as a young rider, getting to watch all these pros, and then finally one day making it to the pro level, it was pretty cool.
And that's your Moose Racing Rider Spotlight on Keith Little, who's been coming on strong as of late. Speaking of Little, let's head to the youth production, 13 to 15. These guys ain't none too little, that's for sure. We head down to the starting line. We got a total of 16 riders vying for the honors of hole shot in Moto number 1 as they head up through the first turn. Looks like it's going to be the number 43 that's going to grab the early lead there. That's Yasmin Adams out of Savannah, Tennessee. Other riders out there include the number 30 of Neil McGrath out of Bradenton, Florida, the 98 of Daniel Cooper from Huntsville, Alabama, also the 85 of Strong out of Salem, Ohio, the 155 of Sean Weibelt out of Melbourne, Florida, the 111 of Adam Blackburn out of Lodi, Ohio, the 83 Robert Mazie out of Belmead, New Jersey, the number 20 of Charlie McVeigh, he's out of New Brighton, Pennsylvania, the 282 of Andrew Spence from Marion, Virginia, 24 of Nick DeFonso out of Willoughby, Ohio, the 87 of Austin Moser from Pipersville, Pennsylvania, the number 4 of Ryan Anderson out of Huffman, Texas, the 141 of Adam Urbis from Cumberland City, Tennessee, the 31 of Hayden Helmick out of Dover, Tennessee, number 180 of Chad Davis, he's out of King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and the 783 of Randy Sauceman, he's out of Greenville, Tennessee, DNSing in Moto 1 and Moto 2. Look like problems in that first turn for him. Chad Davis also DNFing both Moto 1 and Moto 2. Tough break for the number 180 rider out there. As he sometimes is a factor to contend with. As we watch the youth production 13 to 15 unfold, it is going to be the number 30 of Neil McGrath that finally moves to the front of the pack. And actually, he'll take a second place finish in Moto number 1, but is able to come back in the second Moto and take the win, and that's good enough for the overall, as Moto number 1 win went to the number 83 of Robert Mazie out there out of Belmead, New Jersey, but he's not able to back it up. He finishes 12th in the second Moto, which drops him to 7th overall, but it's McGrath, Cooper, Yasmin Adams, Zachary Strong, and Sean Weibelt rounding out your top 5 of our youth production class here at the ATV Tennessee Spring National. On to the 90 production senior 12 to 15-year-olds now. 17 riders vie for top honors here today at Muddy Creek as the gate drops on Moto number 1. 17 riders, as we said, headed into that first turn. Who's going to get it all sorted out up front when it's all said and done? As these little riders a little slower to that first turn than some of the other big bikes. But as we can see, the 696 of Cody Tittle grabs the early lead. It looks like Tittle's going to be the one to beat out of Florence, Alabama, at least here in Moto number 1, as he will take the Moto win. Other riders we see out there, the 93 of Bryn Mara, he's out of Bordertown, New Jersey. The 77 of Nicholas Moser, he's out of Pipersville, Pennsylvania. The 128 of Grant Darnell from Murray, Kentucky. The 57 of Dalton Gentry from Fort Valley, Georgia. 23 of Christopher Ham from Englewood, Florida. 281 of Kelsey Loreen from Amity, Pennsylvania. The 33 of Brandon Rhodes from Florence, Alabama. 68 of Christy Loreen from Amity, Pennsylvania. 199. That's Alexander Nickerson from Riverdale, Michigan. The number 8 of Turner Holderfield from Florence, Alabama. The 28 of Jeffrey Rastrelli out of Palm City, Florida, has a strong first Moto. Actually finishes up second in the first Moto, but DNFs in Moto number 2, so it takes him way back in the standing. 21 of Ariel Monroe from Alnut, West Virginia. The 15 of Jennifer Dearmar from Laurel, Maryland. The 707 of Aaron Beer from Dyer, Indiana. The number 1 of Justin Lunsford out of Iron Station, North Carolina. And the number 7 of Brittany Snyder from Allenton, Michigan. As we watch this Moto unfold, the riders work their way around the race course. There's Nick Moser out of Pipersville, Pennsylvania, the number 128 of Grant Darnell. He's actually hanging out in about a 5th place position here in Moto number 1. But as the race weekend wears on, as we told you, Cody Tittle got the early lead and actually takes a win in Moto number 1 aboard the number 696. But second Moto, not nearly as kind to him as he had to work his way up to the pack there. Ends up finishing 3rd in Moto number 2. And that will be only good enough for a second place finish for him on the weekend. Now, on the other hand, the 93 of Bryn Mara, who took 3rd place in Moto number 1, comes back in Moto 2 to take the overall. So it's Mara, Tittle, Moser, Darnell, and Gentry rounding out your top 5. Moving to the 90 production junior class now. These riders 8 to 11 years old. Got a total of 18 riders in this one. We're going to get a chance to see the number 969 back out there once more, but this time it's Cole Tittle, Bubba Cole Tittle out of Florence, Alabama, the younger brother of Cody Tittle out there as we get off and rolling, and it looks like Tittle going to be one of the men to beat out there as other riders try to get it all sorted out. The 44 of Tyler Pittman from Murray, Kentucky. The 14 of Taylor Seal from Denham Springs, Louisiana. 33 of Colby Gilchrist out of Florence, Alabama. The 181 of Zach Hammond from Palm Bay, Florida. 32 of Jesse Scavart from Jefferson, Ohio. 55 of Tyler Ashcraft from Statesville, North Carolina. 22 of Cody Olander from Brooksville, Florida. The 24 is Ryan Harness out of Beebe, Arkansas. The 75, Benjamin Mercado out of Muscle Shoals, Alabama. The 81 of Nathan Walls from Piketon, Ohio. The 11 of Amber Urbis from Cumberland City, Tennessee. Number 7, Brandy Cottage from Industry, Pennsylvania. The number 8 of Zachary Gaiola out of Bethlehem, Connecticut. The 108 of Jamie Davis from King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. The 38 of Austin Edwards out of Canton, North Carolina. 27 of Cage Edwards from Spring City, Tennessee. And the 67 of Duncan Fincher out of Decatur, Illinois. See, running in the number 3 spot out there is the number 32 of Jesse Scavart back there, but tough break for Scavart in moto number 2 as he comes back to only finish up in an 8th place position, so it drops him down in the overall just a little bit. There's the number 32 we were talking about, a Scavart there, but a good, strong run in moto number 1. So looks like consistency does pay off for your leader, the 969 of Tittle, as he does take 1-1 to take the win out there. And Tyler Pittman, the number 44 from Murray, Kentucky, taking a 2-2 for the overall second on the weekend. Now, Ryan Harness, who we saw there just a moment ago, aboard the number 25, we see there also the number 38 machine of Austin Edwards. Edwards out of Canton, North Carolina, took a 13th and a 17th. There's the 11 machine. That's Amber Urbis from Cumberland City, Tennessee. As we see these riders all trying to get it all sorted out. 18 of them in the 90 production junior 8 to 11-year-old class. It looks like troubles for Nathan Walls from Piketon, Ohio. He actually ended up with an 11th overall, a 17th and 6th. So evidently first moto he had some big problems, but redeemed himself in moto 2. It's Tittle, Pittman, Seal, Gilchrist, and Hammond rounding out your top 5. Up next, the 90cc modified 8 to 15-year-old class. We've seen some of these riders out there in the production class a little bit ago. We'll see how it all breaks down here for our modified division, 8 to 15-year-old riders again, as we've got about, looks like 15 of these riders vying for the number 1 shot in turn number 1. As we make our way through turn 1, it's going to be the 88 of Joel Hetrick from Seneca, Pennsylvania. And actually, Hetrick's going to carry this one all the way to a Moto 1 win. Other riders out there include the number 36 of DJ Sperling. He's out of Fredericksburg, Indiana. The 28 of Jeffrey Rastrelli out of Palm City, Florida. 41 of Ethan Straney from Vine Grove, Kentucky. The 32 of Jesse Scavart from Jefferson, Ohio. The 777 of Sean Walls from Piketon, Ohio. Number 7 of Brittany Snyder, Allenton, Michigan. The 180 Chad Davis from King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. The 121 of Cody Croft from Camp Point, Illinois. Alexander Nickerson rides the number 199 from Riverdale, Michigan. The number 22, Houston Hinton from Florence, Alabama. The number 11, Ashley McCurry from Telford, Tennessee. The 783, Randy Sauceman. He's out of Greenville, Tennessee. The 798 of Cody Parker from Mountain City, Tennessee. And the 120 of Jesse Putnam out of Shelby, North Carolina. Joel Hetrick, as we told you, got off to the early lead. He proved to be the man to beat out there as far as the weekend of racing was concerned in a 90cc modified 8 to 15-year-old class. Some battling going on behind him, though. It's the number 36 of DJ Sperling actually takes a 3rd place finish in moto number 1 behind Jeffrey Rastrelli, the number 28 machine, who puts up a good fight. But whenever they come back out in moto number 2, Sperling actually gets the advantage there over Rastrelli. He takes a 2nd in the 2nd moto, Rastrelli a 3rd in the 2nd moto, so that's the way they end up finishing overall behind Hetrick. Sperling in 2nd, Rastrelli in 3rd. Then, of course, Ethan Straney having a very consistent weekend for himself aboard the number 41 machine out there, as Straney out of Vine Grove, Kentucky, took 2 4th-place finishes on the weekend to settle up in a 4th-place overall spot. There's Brittany Snyder, one of our future women's class riders, aboard the number 7 machine from Allenton, Michigan. And there is Rastrelli, whom we told you took 2nd in this first moto. There's the 36 machine of Sperling. They switched things around in moto number 2. 121 Cody Croft from Camp Point, Illinois, a 5th-place finish in moto number 1. But 2nd moto, he DNF'd, so that took him way back in the points to about a 9th-place position finish. But up front, it was Hetrick, Sperling, Rastrelli, Straney, and Jesse Scavart rounding out your top 5 on our Moose Racing 90cc modified results board. Moving on next to Pro Moto number 2, we saw Jeremiah Jones take the win in that first moto, Gust in second, and Joe Bird fought back for a hard-fought third-place finish, and behind him, Jeremy Lawson and Goodman, a couple of riders, and John Natale actually took the fourth-place finish in moto number 1. We'll see if he can redeem himself here in the second moto. Was up front, was one of the contenders, but as the moto wore on, we saw him fade away. Let's see if that happens here in the heat of the second moto at the Tennessee ATV Spring National. Gate is down. Riders in turn number 1. It's side-by-side racing action. And it looks like maybe Keith Little might have got that whole shot one more time. No, that's Goodman, the number 708. Then there's Jeremiah Jones back in second. Bird in third. Gus in the fourth-place position, rounding out the top 5 early on. The 13 of John Natale. So the players are back up front. Will they be able to stay there as they got out early in this second moto? They had to work their way into position in moto number 1. Battle for the lead early on, Jones and Goodman. Goodman feeling the pressure as he did in moto number 1. See if he succumbs to it very quickly here in the second moto. He rose to the occasion there in moto number 1, was able to fight these guys off for a little bit, especially Jeremiah Jones for that second place position. But this time out of the gate, it's up front, and the battle is on. You got to be wondering what's going on in the mind of Harold Goodman right now, as he has got Jones all over his rear wheel with Bird right behind him, Gust right behind him, and Natale right behind him. So a really tight race up front. Can Goodman hold off the advancements of Jones? And right behind Jones, the number 7 of Joe Bird. You know, a lot of things have got to be going through his mind right now, and probably more than anything, the lack of confidence is what's going to get him passed right there by the number 2 of Jeremiah Jones. He loses his rhythm through that small rhythm section there, but he holds on to second. But here comes Bird now. Here comes Gus, and here comes Natale as we take a look at our ticker board there. Bird is 4th, Natale in 5th. Jeremy Lawson, a good strong run here in the second moto at a 6th place position. It is Wimmer in the 7th spot. 8th spot, Brown. Dunkelberger in 9th. And Keith Little rounds out your top 10. Trent Candell back in the number 11 position. But up front, all eyes once again on moto number 1 winner, Jeremiah Jones, who's got the lead out there. Goodman in second. And now it is Digger Doug Gus back in the number 3 spot as he's gotten around the number 7 of Joe Bird. So Bird's going back instead of forward. You got to wonder if that's the way it's going to end up when this moto is all said and done. So it looks like it's about to be a 3-way or a 2-way battle for that 4th place position, with Joe Bird and John Natale as the 3-way battle up front begins to separate just a little bit. So we might see these 3 riders, the 2 Suzuki pilots and the 708 of Goodman, start to stretch things out. Meanwhile, Bird and Natale battling it out back there for the 4th place spot. But look at this. Here comes Gus. He makes the pass on Goodman now. So now we got Suzuki's running 1 and 2, and Goodman now drops off to the 3rd place position. This is early in the moto, and that could spell disaster for the rest of the field out there with Jeremiah Jones and Doug Gust out front. They're going to do nothing but try to stretch this one out over the rest of the field. And with our 2 top points contenders in this series right now of Natale and Bird battling it out back there for 4th, that might be the big breather for Harold Goodman here in moto number 2, and that might prove to be his best finish so far in this 2006 racing season. But meanwhile, it looks as though Natale is starting to pressure Doug Gus, the number 55 machine. So things are changing quite a bit here in the second moto of racing, and Bird not much of a factor back there behind Natale now, as Natale is strong here early in the second moto. We saw him, we don't know if he got tired in moto number 1 with the extreme heat conditions or not, but right now in moto number 2, Natale is on his A game. Will he be able to keep it throughout the entire 20-minute plus 1 lap moto that takes place at each and every ATV National for both moto 1 and moto 2? Natale is strong right now, and he is showing that he ate his Wheaties this morning. Will he be able to get around Doug Gus? Will he be able to challenge Jeremiah Jones? Time will tell the story. As we keep an eye on this battle for that 2nd place position, you got to wonder what's going on in the mind of Joe Bird back there in that 4th place position. Is maybe he holding back just a little bit to let these guys do their thing up front, and then maybe try to sneak up and challenge these guys as the moto wears on and we get toward the end of it. We saw him make some passes toward the end of moto number 1. That might be what he has in store here in moto number 2. But it's Gus and Natale battling it out for second. Jeremiah Jones continues to walk the dog out there as he is stretching things out here at Muddy Creek. Round 8 of the ATV8 National Motocross Championship Series. This is the ITP Moose Racing ATV Series presented by Parts Unlimited. Right on the rear wheels is John Natale of Doug Gus. Can he get around Gus? He's going from outside to inside, switching it up, trying to find a line around. And it looks like a little traction lost there on the part of Natale. So it looks like Gus is getting a little bit more, and he's going to stretch it back out just for a moment, but he's not going to be able to keep it there as they get into some of these tighter technical sections. Natale is able to close the gap up that much more. Meanwhile, Bird still back there to that number 4 spot, watching it all unfold. And the youngster of Lawson still back in the number 5 spot aboard the number 16 as he is watching these seasoned veterans go at it up front as well. So we have got a great field of riders back here, and some not only some top-notch pro riders up front, but we got some top-notch up-and-comer pro riders in that mid-pack of the top 10 right now in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place on back. We'll sort those guys out in just a few moments. So right now, it is Jones all by himself up front. Let's watch the beauty of this ride here at Muddy Creek as Jeremiah Jones having such a bad luck streak at the beginning of the season. Things have turned around so much for him as he is working on his 3rd win in about 4 races here at Muddy Creek Raceway. Right now, as we take a look at our Parts Unlimited leaderboard, it is Jones, Gus, Natale, Bird, and Lawson still back in that number 5 spot as we're about a third of the way through Moto number 2. And Jeremiah Jones on his way home to his next win of this 2006 racing season. And whether or not this is going to be enough this early in the season to move him up and put him in a position to be there maybe at the end of the championship points race, we'll just have to wait and see. We've got to wait and see how the checkers, how things fall when the checkers finally fly here at Muddy Creek, and we'll start sorting things out. And obviously, the better rides that Jeremiah Jones can put in, the closer and closer it's going to put him to being a contender there for the championship points race. And all he's got to do is hope for a bad race by 1 or 2 of those riders, and he's right there in the hunt and in the thick of things before you know it. And this could go all the way down to round number 14 in Bowling Green, Kentucky for the Fall National to find out whether or not who's going to be the champion. Will Jones be able to come from way behind, or will Bird be able to hold on to it? Bird has never won a championship. He's only been in this situation a couple of different times, so that's the reason he knows he can't count this championship before it's happened. But at the same time, a lot of things are starting to wear on this rider's mind. He's got a lot of pressure on him. He wants to win his first championship. He has the points lead, but he's also got a lot of riders that were having some bad luck in the early part of the season finally have things turn around for them, so consistency is starting to pay off, and that's where things are starting to tighten up and where Bird is starting to get a little bit nervous right now. But Bird not too nervous, it doesn't look like right now, as he is reeling back in the number 13 of John Natale, as we're about to see that battle shape up one more time. That for the number 3 spot in this battle in Moto number 2. Again, it's Jeremiah Jones, your leader. Gus in 2nd, Natale in 3rd. Joe Bird in 4th place. Jeremy Lawson still holding on back there in 5th. But look, the battle is for 3rd right now, as Lawson is going to go to school right now, I think, and watch this one all unfold right now as they make their way over that tabletop section about halfway in to this lap of racing as these riders work their way around, well, that rider anyway, to the finish line region in that off-camber horseshoe section. Goes Jeremiah Jones up and over the finish line region. Just a few more laps to go, and this one will be in the bag for him. Though Gus, currently in the 2nd place position, might be thinking, hey, I might try to reel in my teammate there and steal the win away, because right now, as far as the points is concerned, Gus is in command over Jeremiah Jones. So I know that Doug Gus is very hungry right now at 39 years old, not only because he's just an avid rider and a great rider, and at 39 years old, Gus knows that these young up-and-comers like Wimmer and Lawson and all those riders that are working their way up through the packs right now could be a force to be reckoned with over the course of the next few years, and he wants to try to put one more championship under his belt. He is in position to do it right now, 3rd place in the points. A lot of things have got to go in his favor over the course of the last half of the season, but we've seen things that have panned out for him so far, even in some adverse situations. Digger Doug Gus has come out smelling like a rose and still holding on to a 3rd place position. Look at the battle for 2nd. Still, it is Natale and Bird going at it for, actually this is a battle for 3rd place. The battle for 2nd is would be with Digger Doug Gus. Gus is starting to stretch it out just a little bit, though these guys are keeping him rather honest right now. The only one that seems to be making up the big ground is Jeremiah Jones right now, unless Gus can find that magic line around the Muddy Creek race course, as Jeremiah Jones has found so far, it looks like. And there you can see the gap that has opened up. It is comfort for Jones, and it is comfort for Digger Doug Gus right now, but no comfort, no rest for the weary there in the 3rd place position for John Natale. They're actually about 17 seconds back of the lead right now. That's not as far back as what a lot of people might think they would be at this particular juncture in the race, especially with the speed that Jeremiah Jones is pulling right now and the battle that these riders are in. Sometimes it slows them down, but other times it does pick up the pace, and it looks like these riders have not slowed down that much, though Gus has got a little bit of that gap in between second and third. These riders are not letting that gap open up right now. So if Joe Bird can get around, or if John Natale can shake him off, Joe Bird off, then they still have an opportunity to reel in Gus for that number 2 spot. Battling continues. These riders, Joe Bird, you can see, studying the lines that John Natale uses each and every corner here at Muddy Creek Raceway. We saw him do it in Moto number 1 also, and we saw him put a pass on heading into that final lap of racing in Moto number 1. Wonder if he's going to try to do that again. I know that Bird is just looking for consistency right now, finishing on the podium and finishing ahead of John Natale is his main goal right now, though he would like to be up there ahead of Doug Gus. His main concern is that number 13 of John Natale right now, because that is where the gap is at, as there's only a handful of points separating these two riders as they headed into this 8th round of racing. Jeremiah Jones, again, trying to chip away at that points lead they have, and he's doing it 5, 10, 8 points at a time, and before you know it, Jeremiah Jones could be a contender. Like we said, this is round 8 of 14. We're halfway through, and we're heading into the second half of the season with the Muddy Creek race here this weekend, the Memorial Day weekend in Blountville, Tennessee. Bird still all over the rear wheels of John Natale. Natale just cannot shake Joe Bird, the number 7 machine on the Joe Bird Quad Riding School ATV. As you can see, the track is getting hard packed and slick, and some dust kicking up in some of the areas. We're seeing some blue grooves out there. So whether or not this is an advantage for some of these riders or a disadvantage, we're about to find out. Doesn't look like much of a disadvantage for Joe Bird. As rough or as smooth as the racetrack is, he is able to work his way in and out of each and every one of those turns. On the inside of those turns, things looking rather smooth. On the outside of some of those turns, things starting to roughen up. But Jones, same way. It doesn't matter where he rides. It looks like a smooth race course for him. Side by side. No! Natale and Bird get together. Looks like Bird's front wheel clips the rear wheel of John Natale as their lines just come together right there. We see it from 2 different angles. Kind of pitches Natale sideways. He high sides him. Fortunately for John Natale, he was able to get away from that ATV, and he gets up and he's wondering, what's going on, Joe? But it looked like just simply those 2 lines came together, and John came out on the short end of that in a lot of different ways, because that is going to help out Joe Bird, especially if Natale can't get back up and running quick enough, and if he can separate himself, or if Bird can get separated between he and John Natale, who now drops from 3rd to 9th place. That's going to be a big points pickup for Joe Bird if he can hold on to this the remainder of this moto. What an amazing turn of events here in Moto number 2, and how much of in the favor of Joe Bird did that little incident come out to play in his favor is amazing, especially with Natale dropping all the way back to 9th. He's trying to work his way up right now as he's trying to get around a couple of different riders. The top 5 changes just a little bit. It's Jones, Gus, Bird. Lawson now moves into 4th. Dustin Wimmer in 5th. Brown 6th. Goodman 7th. Ellis in 8th. Natale 9th. And Keith Little back in the 10th place position. Will Natale be able to make up ground? That has to take a lot out of you, especially after the battle that he had going on for that number 3 spot with Joe Bird. Speaking of battles, look at this battle back for 6th place with Pat Brown and Harold Goodman. Goodman trying to reclaim whatever he can here in this second moto, as he's looking quite possibly for the strongest finish he's had so far here in the 2006 ITP Moose Racing ATVA National Motocross Championship Series. But again, Joe Bird in 3rd, and he gets the big break here. Though Jeremiah Jones is up front and going to shave a few points off, so will Digger Doug Gust aboard the number 55. Most importantly right now, his closest competitors way back there, and Joe Bird has got to be feeling happy right now, and I know he's thinking just ride smart, ride to the end, take this 3rd place finish on the day, and salvage what you can out of the weekend, because Joe Bird has been riding from behind the 8 ball, it seems like all race weekend here at Muddy Creek Raceway. At least in Moto number 1, he had to work his way up through the pack. Same thing here in Moto number 2, especially with that heated battle that he had going on with John Natale back there for that 3rd place position. And, you know, either one of those riders would have deserved that spot. Just unfortunately, they got together like that, at least, and especially for John Natale, because that took him way back there. But you know what? That might fire up John Natale just a little bit, give him a little bit of incentive as we head into Steel City, because, you know, that's only going to fire him up and make him that much more hungry, because he starts to see that championship slip out of his fingertips. And as they always say, the second championship is harder to win than the first, because you've got so many people gunning after you out there. And, you know, you really don't know what to do and what's going on. You just play it by ear whenever you win your first championship. Second time, a lot of pressure is put on you because people are expecting a second championship out of you, and you are expecting the same out of yourself. And whenever you can't perform at that level, sometimes it starts playing some head games. And will that start playing head games from Natale here in the latter part of the season, or will he be able to prove himself the true Ironman of ATV motocross racing and rise above the situation and still be able to be there whenever the final races come to pass in this 14-round series? Will John Natale be a contender? Will Jeremiah Jones work his way into contention, or will it be all Digger Doug Gust? Will things fall into his favor? We'll just have to wait and see. Right now, Gust is riding again on another rail out there in that second-place position. Gust has not pressured himself to take the moto win or the win for the weekend here as far as that goes. He's just looking to gain as many points as he can on that rider right there and John Natale, who happens to be way back. And I know that this is going to be good news for Doug Gust as well as John Natale suffering here in this second moto, because that's going to help him close the gap up on Natale from that third-place position and tighten that second and third-place points race up there just a little bit. So a lot of incentive for a lot of these riders out here, including that rider right there, Jeremiah Jones, especially being able to put the wins in that he has been able to. He's going for his third out of 4 races in wins. Out of the last 2, he's actually he's won 2 out of the last 3. This would be 3 out of 4 if he's able to pull this one off. But again, Jones up front, Gust in second, and Bird back in third. Lawson is in the number 4 spot. Wimmer running a strong race back there in the 5th place position aboard the number 191. Wimmer finishing up in 10th place in moto number 1. That's going to better his overall scores here in the second moto whenever we start adding things up. So Wimmer, we might start seeing him inch toward the overall top 10 in point standings in the 2006 season as things are starting to get down to crunch time here at the ITP Moose Racing ATV National Championship Series. Well, as things sort out and get stretched out here in this second moto, it becomes fairly easy to figure out who your overall podium finishers are going to be. Jeremiah Jones, who took the win in Moto 1, looking like a second moto win here. Doug Gust, who took the second in the first moto, looking like he's going to finish second here. And Joe Bird taking a third-place finish in Moto 1. It looks like a third-place finish here in Moto number 2. That's your podium right there, 1, 2, and 3, Jones, Gust, and Bird. Back behind them, those where things start to get a little bit sketchy as we start doing some figuring here. Right now, we got Lawson in the 4th place position, Goodman in the 7th place position, and Lawson actually finished in 8th place in Moto number 1, and Goodman at 5th place in Moto number 1. You start doing the adding of the scores up, they actually tie, so Lawson would get the gimme and the overall 4th unless things change here today. And there's that number 16 rider out of Battletown, Kentucky. Again, Goodman, the 708. A 7th place finish back there where he's riding right now. 5 and a 7 should be good enough for him to score the overall 5th on the race day. John Natale, on the other hand, has been able to only clip away at one more position out there. He dropped all the way off to 9th place position. He's only up to 8th place position as we near the latter part of this race. Number 13 of John Natale going down after he and Joe Bird getting together in the latter half of this moto. A big break for a lot of riders in a lot of different ways as the white flag is out for Jeremiah Jones, and those riders that are going to capitalize on the misfortunes of John Natale do include your leader, Jeremiah Jones, the number 55 of Doug Gust, and the number 7 of Joe Bird. All 3 of those riders are able to capitalize on those misfortunes. And I know that that is going to definitely fire up the Ironman, John Natale. So be looking for him to come back with a vengeance when we had the round number 9 at Steel City Raceway in only a couple of weeks at a brand new venue for the ATV Stampede up there. For the first time ever, we've seen ATV National Motocross Championship Racing on the Steel City Racecourse. And I know these riders are looking forward to that as that plays host to one of the national motocross rounds of AMA racing out there. So these guys are looking forward to seeing that national caliber track, and we're looking to see who's going to be able to come out on top of that one, as it looks like Jeremiah Jones on the victory lap out there. Less than a lap to go now is Gus. Less than a lap to go in second. These riders have settled into position. No one is pushing anyone at this point. Bird still back in third. I know he has got a huge smile underneath that helmet right now as he motors his way toward the podium here on this final lap of racing. Jeremiah Jones is going to get her done, though. A 1-1, working his way from about a third of the way back through the pack in moto number 1, from about a third place start in moto number 2. It was a lot easier for the number 2 Yoshimura Suzuki, second moto out. White flag will turn the checkers, and Jeremiah Jones takes the win here at Muddy Creek Raceway. Gus will get second, and Joe Bird will take the number 3 overall spot on the weekend. As you know, Jeremiah Jones is pretty psyched right now as we head down to the winner's circle. It's a hot one. These guys are going to take a little while to cool off. Lots of water, I'm sure, but they're trying their best to head on up to the finish line podium. They want to say thanks to those race fans that cheered them on all the way around this race course, and it was a rowdy bunch of ATV racing fans here in Blountville, Tennessee this weekend for this 8th round of the 2006 racing season. High fives and handshakes to all of our riders. We look at the overall results. It is Jones, Gus, Bird, Lawson overall 4th, and Goodman, as we said. Natali gets the overall 6th, then Brown, Wimmer, Havistow, and Keith Little rounds out your top 10 with Ellis, Candle, Spader, Dunkelberger, Meeks, and Bush going 11th through 16th.
Yeah, not the weekend I wanted. I got to go home and work a little harder. The bike worked great. It's just I got to get on my game a little more. Overall, it's pretty good. Glad to be on the podium, and let's try harder next time.
The heat got to me today, but hats off to Jeremiah. He was riding better than me at a faster pace than me. I'm just happy I got up there in second.
Yeah, I did. You know, I think the heat played a factor today. It definitely played in my favor. You know, I've been riding about every day at home, and I think it's paying off. You know, definitely with Team Suzuki Yoshimura behind me. You know, it's just pretty easy to go out there and try to win these races. Yeah, you know, considering the start I had this season, you know, I've clicked off the last 3 out of 4 races. So, you know, hopefully, you know, my just trying to be there at the end. You know, I really don't want somebody just to walk away with the points. I'm just trying to make it interesting for all the fans and spectators at the last round.
Well, he's definitely making it interesting. There is no doubt about that as we head down to our Moose Racing winner's circles. We see big smiles on all these guys' faces. Digger Doug out of Wisconsin. You know he's not ready for this kind of heat, but, you know, he does dig deep and is able to hold on to that second place in both Moto 1 and 2. And this is a very hot weekend as the champagne sprays here at Muddy Creek. Jeremiah seems to be the happiest of all. Joe Bird actually throwing his bottle of champagne, his empty bottle of champagne, down to the race fans as our photographers get one last opportunity to get their photos of these riders. Look at that. The swag is being handed out here at Muddy Creek Raceways. We head to our next class. This is our 70 shifter class, 6 to 11-year-old riders. As the 2 card is up, the card will go sideways, actually to the 1 and then sideways. Gates drop and racing action is underway here in our 70 shifter 6 to 11-year-old division. 10 riders heading into turn number 1. As they get them all sorted out in that first turn, it looks like it's going to be that number 8 of Cam Coble from Webster, Florida, taking over the early lead. He's going to have company back there, though, out of some very fast riders in this 70 shifter class, including the 209 of Brett Music out of Vernonville, West Virginia, the 81 of Lee Rentz out of Beaufort, South Carolina, the 44 of Tyler Pittman from Murray, Kentucky, the 969 of Cole Tittle from Florence, Alabama, the 22 of Casey Glaser out of North Branch, New Mexico, the 84 of Alex Zimborski out of Holt, Michigan, the 649 of David Beer from Dyer, Indiana, the number 4 of Ty Campbell out of Lodi, Ohio, and the 91 of Hannah Furman from Brighton, Michigan. Moto number 1 sees eventually the 969 of Cole Tittle moving into a number 1 spot as he and Cam Coble actually get a pretty good battle going on as the moto wears late in the day. And of course, Coble ends up finishing a second place position in moto number 1, but tough break for that 969 in moto number 2 as he drops all the way back to finish up in a 9th place position. So he goes 1-9 on the day, and that's only good enough for a 5th place position. There's Hannah Furman, the number 91 Brighton, Michigan rider. She finished 10th in both of her motos, but consistency for that young lady. And Cam Coble, though, looked like he was the man to beat. Look at there. Here's the battle we were talking about. Actually, Tittle not only takes a win, but he had to chase down Cam Coble in order to get that feat accomplished, as a matter of fact. And right there we saw him going by. He was trying to reel him in. We see the 44 back there. It's Tyler Pittman. He's knocking on the door right now of Lee Rentz, the 81 machine. There goes the 22 of Casey Glacier. He's out of North Branch, New Mexico. Good to have him out there. The 649 of David Beer from Dyer, Indiana. Looks like he's struggling in Moto number 1. Actually finished up 9th in Moto number 1. But when it's all said and done, Koval takes the overall with a 2-1. Then it's Music, Rentz, Pittman, and Tittle rounding out your top 5. Heading to the 70 production 6 to 11-year-old class. 11 riders in this one this day as the gates set to drop once more here. Cody Tittle, or actually Cole Tittle, is back out here in this one. We saw him in that one a few moments ago. He comes out in this particular race, the 70 production auto 6 to 11. We were on shifters there a few moments ago. But in the turn number 1, it's jockeying side by side. And the 209 of Brett Music looks like he's going to be one to keep an eye on out there. And as the race wears on, he's actually going to move into the number 1 position and hold on to that one all the way to the checkers. So Brett Music from Vernonville, West Virginia at number 209 will actually take a Moto 1 win. As you can see, he's got a pretty good lead established here in the early part of this moto. Other riders out there do include, we mentioned the 969 of Cole Tittle from Florence, Alabama, the 7 of Rhett Sims from Canton, Georgia, the 7 slash of Christian Horn from Cookeville, Tennessee, 99 of Jeremy Ladon from Glenshaw, Pennsylvania, the 127 of Carly Eckert out of Jasper, Indiana, the number 100 of Stanley Bohenick out of Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, the 48 of Devin Dehart out of Ridgeway, Virginia, the number 4 of Ty Campbell from Lodi, Ohio, the 38 of Savannah Hoover from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and the 120 of Jesse Putnam out of Shelby, North Carolina. There you see Tittle aboard the 969. Actually, Tittle ends up finishing second place in Moto number 1, but comes back in that second Moto to take a second Moto win and actually gets credit for the overall. See some other great battling behind him out of the number 7 of Rhett Sims from Canton, Georgia. Sims actually battling it out in Moto number 1 with the number 4 of Ty Campbell, but Campbell finished 4th in Moto 1, comes back to DNF in Moto number 2, so it takes him out of the hunt for the overall when the race day is all said and done. But still some great battling out there. We see Brett Music, the number 209. Music actually ends up taking the win in that first moto over Cole Tittle, but the second moto doesn't have near as good of luck as he ends up finishing in a 7th place position, which takes him all the way back to a 4th place overall position finish when the scores finally get sorted out there. You see riders actually getting worked over quite a bit by this Muddy Creek race course. Not the roughest of race courses we've seen so far in this 2006 season, but there are sections of this course that do roughen up quite a bit as we take a look at the overall standings. It is Cole Tittle, Rhett Sims, Christian Horn, Brett Music, and Jeremy Ladon running out your top 5 in our 70 production auto 6 to 11-year-old class. 50 production class up next. This is the auto 6 to 8-year-old. And again, another one of those very highly competitive race courses. And sounds like a hive of bumblebees working their way into that first turn. And out of that first turn, it's going to be the 222 of Tyler Heron, who's going to have what looks like an early lead there, along with the 84 of Alex Zimborski. Zimborski from Holt, Michigan. Tyler Heron from Metropolis, Illinois. Other riders that they're going to be doing battle with out there on the course include the 99 of Jeremy Ladon from Glenshaw, Pennsylvania, the 4 of Todd Baber out of Scottsville, Virginia, the number 2 of John Hoover from Cookeville, Tennessee, the 17 of Reed Eckert out of Jasper, Indiana, 13 of Austin Stevens out of Dawson Springs, Kentucky, the 98 Bradley Rose from Ripley, Tennessee, the 24 of Ryan Harness out of Beebe, Arkansas, the 38 of Savannah Hooper from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Also out there on the track, the 42 of Austin Lunsford out of Iron Station, North Carolina, the number 8 of Delaney Chappelle out of Bevins, Tennessee, the 8 slash of Zachary Gaiola out of Bethlehem, Connecticut, the 44 of Tyler Peters out of Chippewa Lake, Ohio, 171 of Alexander Hammond out of Palm Bay, Florida, the number 12 of Abby Pittman. Pittman is from Murray, Kentucky, and the 22 rounding out the field of 17 riders is Kendall Olander out of Brooksville, Florida. As far as the first moto of racing is concerned, Alex Zimborski, the number 84 machine, appears to be the one to beat out there. He takes a Moto 1 win. So Jeremy Ladon, who was in contention a little bit, actually ended up with a 3rd place finish in that first moto, comes back to win the second moto for an overall second. But Zimborski's 1-2 scores him just well enough for taking the win on the day. Baber in 3rd, Heron in 4th, and John Hoover rounds out your top 5 50cc production. As we head now to the 50 stock limited 4 to 6-year-old class, this is the younger of our 50cc riders. As we get set to roll, we've got 15 of these young men and women that are trying their hand here at Muddy Creek Raceway. And as the gate drops here at the 2006 Tennessee ATV Spring National Round 8 ITP Moose Racing, this 2006 season, we can see that Slowly but surely, we get our first rider into the first turn. That's Mike Gleason aboard the number 717 from Slidell, Louisiana. Also out there on the track with us, the 44 of Nolan Cochran out of Gastonia, North Carolina. The 85 of Adam Zimborski out of Holt, Michigan. The 88 of Jordan Digby out of Fulton, Mississippi. The 422 of Connor Furman from Brighton, Michigan. 61 of Nicholas Drasukalis out of Hubbardstown, Massachusetts. The 151 of Keely Miller out of Benton, Kentucky. The 20/ of Jacob Beavers. He's out of Chillicothe, Ohio. The 555 of Hunter Cook from Fremont, Mississippi. The 81 of Carson Giles out of Brandon, Mississippi. The number 2 of Georgia Edwards from Spring City, Tennessee. The 06 of Amanda Zimborski from Holt, Michigan. The 51 of Jeffrey Dodson from Catlett, Virginia. And then we have the 86 of Alexis Wells from Cordova, Tennessee. And the 378 of Brendan Snyder out of Allenton, Michigan. Moto 1 and Moto number 2 saw the 717 of Mike Gleason being in control out there. Other riders that were behind him battling it out. Nolan Cochran actually took a 4th place finish in Moto number 1. The 2nd place finisher in Moto number 1 was actually the 51 of Jeffrey Dodson. Dodson, though, was unable to start in Moto number 2, so he dropped all the way off to a 13th place overall position finish. And then the 3rd place position in Moto number 1 went to the 85 of Adam Zimborski. Zimborski took a 3rd in both Moto 1 and Moto 2, scored him an overall 6th. Nolan Cochran, the number 44 rider, actually took the 4th in Moto 1, but redeemed himself in Moto number 2 for the 2nd place position. That scored him 6th. Then Cochran and Zimborski end up tying there. And again, the best finish in the 2nd Moto breaks any and all ties. So it's Gleason, then Cochran in 2nd, Zimborski in 3rd. Jordan Digby takes 4th with a 5.4, and Connor Furman rounds out your top 5 with a 6.5. Well, that'll do it for round number 8 of the ITP Moose Racing ATVA National Motocross Championship Series, presented by Parts Unlimited and brought to you in part by your friends at Suzuki and ATV Sport Magazine. ATV Motocross on DVD is produced by Gear Media and Marketing. For your next copy of ATV Motocross on DVD, be sure and log on to the World Wide Web at mototees.com or call 888-360-9988.